Hey guys, it is Nick here with another Nick's Topics Dragon Ball What If topic video for you guys today. Been a few months since I did another one of these, but today I'm starting the first part of what if Nam, one of the underused Dragon Ball characters from when Goku was a kid, became a Z fighter. Now I have done one with Giran and Hercule. Hercule was more brought into Z and it was actually used for something. Giran was more or less pushed off, except for brief cameos after Dragon Ball initially ended. But Nam is one of those characters that had very few appearances, including GT cameos. But in this particular what if, I'm going to discuss what would Nam bring to the table that differentiated from Giran and Hercule in my other stories. Because Nam was a decent warrior with a good few abilities and even managed to knock Goku out for a second. But enough with the specifics. Let's set the scene. Now we open up with the 21st World Martial Arts Tournament and Goku and Nam's match playing out the exact same way as it did before. Afterwards, Jackie Chun, who's Master Roshi, if none of you actually watch Dragon Ball, actually recognizes Nam's true potential and thinks to himself, Goku did rather well against this guy and they seem rather equal. What would it be like if he trained him? And after the match, he tells Nam he's Master Roshi because that eventually became a clear thing, and says that he recognizes his potential and offers to train him and reveal his identity and everything else after the tournament. Nam, after learning that Jackie Chun is Master Roshi, the famous teacher, thinks of this as a good opportunity to maybe get good with Goku and Krillin and all them, but wants to know that his village is in good hands and even wants to still go see them if he offers to train. But Jackie Chun says that he'll figure everything out for him after he finishes the tournament, because he's trying to teach Goku Krillin all a lesson about losing, basically. So that leaves the rest of the 21st World Martial Arts Tournament playing out the exact same way that it did before, and afterwards, Jackie Chun once again confronts Nam, and Nam agrees to actually train with Master Roshi on the condition that he still gets to go see his village, and that some of the prize money can be used to get his village food and water so he won't have to stress about it, because that's the whole reason he came to the tournament in the first place. Master Roshi, after revealing himself, agrees to this, and the prize money, instead of being spent on food and whatever was spent on in that particular scene, half of it is put towards Nam's village and giving a bunch of food and water to the village, which means that Nam can train with Master Roshi for a while unabated, with Krillin and such, getting Krillin stronger too. While this is going on, Goku is having his adventures against the Red Ribbon Army, Colonel Silver, General White, all those people, and the story basically playing out the same exact way that it did. Meanwhile, Nam is training with Master Roshi, and as much as I would think that Nam would do like ki attacks and stuff like that, I don't think that he would go for like the Kamehameha, for example, because I feel like Nam would go through like more combat-ready moves, like the lightning surprise attack, maybe even the evil containment wave, and maybe small ki attacks, but the Kamehameha seems like an outstretch for Nam. Even Giran, but Hercule seemed like a more pick for that. Anyways, while Nam, Krillin, and Master Roshi are doing their training, Kid Goku and Bulma eventually arrive on the island and say they need a submarine to get one of the Dragon Balls, because we're at that part of the story. Nam, seeing Goku again after a long while, sees that Goku's gotten a little bit stronger, and says to him and Bulma that he's been training with Master Roshi and learned a bunch of new moves, and he wishes to fight Goku for a rematch to see how well both of them had progressed. Obviously, Goku agrees, being Goku, and they have a sparring match at Kame House, and to surprise everybody, Nam is able to hold his own against Goku, sufficiently more so than the actual tournament. He tries his cross-arm dive, he tries ki blast. Goku is affected by most of these, but the battle comes off to a tie. So, this proves that while Nam has gotten stronger, Goku has been no slouch for his own power. And with that out of the way, Nam joins Goku, Krillin, and Bulma on the way to General Blue's island for the Dragon Ball in the sea. So, the whole trip there, besides Nam's inclusion, would remain pretty much the same until we hit the scene with the pirate robot. Now, with Nam there and his use of the cross-arm dive, while it being a giant robot, and his key attacks and different moves he learned from Krillin and Yamcha and such, this means that the pirate robot is defeated a lot easier rather than it just being Kid Goku and Krillin to do all the work. So, that's a good plot point to discuss. Meanwhile, we have to remember that General Blue is after them. And this battle is going to go a lot different than it did before. Now, in a few of my other stories, I discussed that Hercule and Jiren's inclusion would mean that General Blue would just die in the cave, but that's going to be different this time. General Blue, the whole scene past the pirate robot would remain the same, except that Nam would be separated with Goku, and Krillin would still be separated with Bulma. Krillin fights General Blue whenever General Blue finds them both and finds the Dragon Ball, but Krillin is able to hold his own, substantially more so because of his extra training with not just Yamcha and Master Roshi, but Nam being there as well, but is still paralyzed in the end. When Nam and Goku both arrive to save the day, Nam thinks fast and uses his cross-arm dive against General Blue. Now this immediately knocks out General Blue. General Blue was durable, but the cross-arm dive was pretty powerful, and General Blue's just human. He's not Goku. So, this means that when the cave collapses, General Blue is stuck under the rubble, which means no scene with Arale and the search for the Dragon Balls after that, and that whole thing plays out a lot smoother. Now, then get to a big thing. What about Mercenary Tao? Will Nam's inclusion to this battle mean good things in the tide of the Z Fighters? Or will Nam's inclusion doom Goku more than help him? And hey guys, it is Nick here with another Nick's Topics Dragon Ball What If Topic video for you guys today. And today, I am bringing you guys part 2 of What If Nam Became a Z Fighter. Now, Nam, like Giran and somewhat Hercule, even though he was very useful at times in the parts of Z, just like near the end of Z, and somewhat in Super, Nam is one of those other side characters who was introduced and then pretty much nerfed and then completely forgot about. But I have changed that. If you guys have seen the last part, Nam has actually mattered quite a bit. And he was very helpful in the aids of helping Goku fight off General Blue, the pirate robot, and everything just after the 21st World Martial Arts Tournament, except for whenever Goku went off on his own, Nam was training with Master Roshi along with Krillin and Yamcha, learning, like, not the Kamehameha, but at least good moves to help him, like the lightning surprise, etc. If you watch the last video, you'll know more. And Mercenary Tao is gonna maybe be a different problem for them. Now, when it comes to that part of the saga, since General Blue was killed off in the cave, and there was no Arale, Captain Yellow and that whole thing goes per normal. But whenever we get to the scene with Bora fighting Mercenary Tao, I say fighting, more like, it wasn't even a fight, it was like a pretty much mercy killing. Right whenever Bora's about to be thrown in the air by Tao, Nam, with his quick thinking and respect for village elders, because he's part of a village, he uses his quick thinking and quick instincts and does a swift cross-arm dive to prevent Tao from throwing Bora up in the air, which, even though it doesn't do the full effect of the cross-arm dive, does slightly injure Tao and catches him off guard, allowing Bora and Upa to get to safety while Nam and Goku fight Tao off. And this is just the first encounter with Tao. So Tao, from almost the complete get-go after that cross-arm dive, is forced completely to use everything at his disposal. But with Kid Goku and Nam, an even stronger Nam, it's just nothing. And Tao is almost just a few minutes into the fight, taken down. Now, when it comes to Nam's village, on a side note, the prize money, or at least half of it, after the tournament was over, was used to give water and food to Nam's village. So that way Nam wouldn't have to worry about it, because that's the whole reason he went to the 21st World Martial Arts Tournament in the first place, is to get money for his village. But since half that money was used anyway for Master Roshi, his village is just fine. He just visits it from time to time, like whenever he was training with Master Roshi. Just visit it from time to time. But he knows it's okay, so he doesn't have to stress about it, because he pursued the art of being a martial artist with Goku and everybody. And since Tao was killed on the first encounter, Goku and Nam, without any trouble and no worries yet, go and see Korn and get the sacred water. So that means that Goku along with Nam are the two strongest at this point. Nam is right alongside Goku, similar to what I did with Hercule and Giran. Now, when we get to the Red Ribbon Army finale, like the finale of the Red Ribbon Army saga, it pretty much goes per normal aside from Nam being there also. But then we get to the fight with Officer Black, which pretty much everything goes per normal, except with Nam's inclusion. That means that Officer Black is forced back a lot more so, especially with the way Nam handles his combat. And Officer Black is surprised, but also he's determined to do this. And after the whole events go down, with him killing Commander Red and getting into his mech form, Nam and Goku, while initially pressured by this, are still able to take Officer Black down. Much more so because Nam's inclusion helps out. Now, when we get into the Fortune Teller Baba saga, I know the sagas are going kind of quick here, but with another warrior's inclusion in the Dragon Ball saga from the get-go, that makes Goku's life a lot easier, and the sagas are much shorter, if you guys haven't already figured out. Now, Krillin and Upa and Puar, that whole thing with Fangs goes completely the same, besides Krillin being a little bit stronger to take Fangs on. And when we get to the Invisible Man, Yamcha's still initially put down by him because he can't see Invisible Man, but when he sees him, he takes him down a lot easier because Yamcha's stronger here. Whenever Yamcha goes against Bandages, he's able to put up a much more decent fight than he did in the anime, because he was training with not only Krillin, but Nam as well, and Nam is a skilled warrior. But sadly, Yamcha still loses, and Nam takes the place of Goku, finishing off Bandages. And Nam does this almost instantly with most of the moves he learned, finishing off with a cross-arm dive. Now, when we get to Devilman, he instantly tries to go for his Devil Might Beam, but it doesn't work. Because if you guys, for the 2% of you that might have thought that this would have worked on Nam, Giran, that's one thing. Hercule's ego, maybe in the early days of Dragon Ball, that could also have played a factor. But with Nam, he's pure as crap, just like Goku, pretty much. So it doesn't do anything, and he ultimately wins that fight too, because this is a much stronger Nam. And even with everything Devilman had, it's just nothing. Now, when we get to Grandpa Gohan, who at the time is a mysterious stranger, he actually wishes to fight Goku alone. And no one knows why he wants this yet, aside from maybe wanting to kill him or seeing him as the strongest. But ultimately, the fight between Kid Goku and Grandpa Gohan goes the same way that it did in the anime, leading up to them finding out that it's his grandpa. Afterwards, Pilaf's little trick to try and get Goku's tail ultimately fails like before, and plays out the same way that it did in the anime, only with Nam possibly being there to provide backup assistance. all leading up to the events of the 22nd World Martial Arts Tournament. Now, before we close off for this episode, I have something really interesting to end the plot of this episode. In the original, Tien effortlessly beat Nam. And Nam was basically there just for the heck of it. But with a stronger Nam, what does this mean? Will Nam ultimately lose to Tien and be cast out and maybe vow revenge against Tien and still be part of the story? Or will nothing change and he's still beaten like before? Or will Nam beat Tien and it go down a darker road for the three-eyed warrior? Hey guys, it is Nick here with another Nick's Topics Dragon Ball What If topic video for you guys today. And today, I am bringing you guys part 3 of What If Nam Became a Z Fighter. Now, something I want to bring up for those of you who are probably wondering this. With Nam a part of the Z Fighters now, what about his village? Is that actually, is it being managed okay without Nam there? Well, yes. You see, since Nam still lost the 21st World Martial Arts Tournament, he didn't get the money. But instead of Jackie Chun throwing him a capsule full of water, half of his prize money went towards food and water for his village. So Nam can actually train unabated besides visiting his village from time to time. So, short little plot point I thought I would put in. Now, we enter the realms of the 22nd World Martial Arts Tournament, with Nam in tow with the Z Fighters instead of being on his own. Now, I left off with an important plot point to discuss in regards to Tien. The first real, big villain and warrior to be introduced. Now, in the original, Tien beat Nam with little to no effort and actually almost killed him. But this time, that's not going to be the case, and there are a bunch of factors as to why that is. Number 1 being, Tien, like many, if not all of the villains that are introduced in the Dragon Ball series as a whole, are introduced as being cocky, overconfident, and just not acknowledging the full strength of their opponents, which means that Tien would leave his guard down, which is why he beat Nam with little to no effort. Number 2, Nam, unlike his original counterpart, who had just went for fun since he lost the 21st World Martial Arts Tournament and didn't get the money, had just come to the tournament for fun. But this time, with the Z Fighters in tow, or what's beginning of them, since there's not that many right now, Nam is much more determined than his original self, and stronger, which means that Tien will not take him seriously. Now, the match begins, and Tien just expects to just beat him instantly and prove a point. But he has a rude awakening. Nam rushes forward at a speed Tien can't even imagine because he didn't expect anything from this guy, and Nam knocks him out of the ring instantly. Tien, after this, is angry, surprised, and just bewildered that this seemingly normal guy, this normal village-looking guy, beat him like it was nothing. He had planned for the opposite. And after he gets up from the ground, realizing what truly happened, he is furious and goes and is instantly ready to just kill Nam and get it over with. But the World Tournament announcer states that Nam didn't do anything wrong. He beat him fair and square, just too fast for him, and that there's nothing Tien can do about it. And Tien's eliminated right in the preliminaries. Master Shen is also mad, not just at Nam, but at Tien. He lost his best fighter. And now for the tournament itself, he has to rely on Chaozu, and he has way less faith in Chaozu than Tien. Sure, Chaozu has his telepathic powers, and flight abilities, but not near the strength and ferocity as Tien. But there's nothing that he can do. And the tournament begins, with the first match being Yamcha and Jackie Chun. Jackie Chun taking the stead of Tien, and Yamcha getting a second chance to fight against Jackie Chun, who he now knows is Roshi, because his identity was revealed in the last tournament. Now, Yamcha is a lot stronger here, and he does give Jackie Chun a bit more of a fight, and Jackie Chun's not nearly as motivated to teach his students a lesson about losing, but Yamcha still loses nonetheless, but he doesn't get his leg broken since Tien is knocked out. So that's a good thing. Now for the next match, Man-Wolf fights against the likes of Krillin. Now, this isn't really a fight, because in the initial fight between Jackie Chun and Man-Wolf, Man-Wolf cheated by bringing a knife in, and then Jackie Chun used Krillin's head to change Man-Wolf back into a man. And Krillin's head just right away just changes him back into a man. There's no fight to be had. So, yeah. The next important fight, and this is genuinely important, is Kid Goku and Chaozu. Why is this important, even though the outcome should be obvious? Well, there is a lot to input here, because Tien is out, so that means Chaozu is going to be even more determined. Number two, Chaozu's paralysis and telepathic attacks are definitely a way to give him an advantage on Goku. But overall, even though these things do apply a factor in Chaozu's potential win, Kid Goku still wins this nonetheless. The next fight, or rather small fight, is Pamput and Nam. And Nam, like he did with Ranfan in the 21st World Martial Arts Tournament, right when Pamput goes to attack, Nam delivers a double karate chop and ends the fight almost instantly. The next fight is Krillin and Jackie Chun. Krillin getting another chance, like Yamcha, to fight against Jackie Chun. And now that Krillin knows this is Roshi along with Yamcha, it's definitely a much closer fight. And Master Roshi, Jackie Chun, did not expect that Krillin would have grew this much. He sort of expected it with all of his students, but he definitely has to try harder this time against the likes of Krillin. And, I mean, he had to try at least a little bit on Yamcha, but he wore himself out a little bit from that. And this time, he wears himself out a little bit more, underestimating Krillin, but he wins nonetheless. The next match, close to the finals, is Kid Goku and Nam. This would be the third fight that Kid Goku and Nam have. Number 1 was in the 21st World Martial Arts Tournament. Number 2, it was when they sparred before fighting General Blue, and this would be their third match. And since they've been training with each other and know about each other's moves, this is a very, very close fight. And everybody, the crowd, and everybody in the Warriors are very, very surprised at how much these two have grown since they last saw them fight. But in the end, Kid Goku wins the fight, but it is very close. I'm talking like Kid Goku almost didn't win. Because like I said, the two know about each other, they know their moves, but since it's Goku, you'd expect him to win. But like I said, it was close. And the final match sees Kid Goku and Jackie Chun facing off against each other again. Now, with Jackie Chun being wore out as well as Goku, who's much more worn out, this is a close fight. But Jackie Chun, having won the tournament already before, and seeing how tired and beaten Goku is, throws the match. Sort of like he did with Tien, but for a different reason. So, ultimately, this means that Goku gets the victory in the tournament, and does not lose to Tien since Tien's not in the tournament, and actually gets his first victory in a tournament. Afterwards, The end result of the tournament, besides Tien and Chaozu not being there because Master Shen's giving him a very big scolding, goes the same up until the point where we see Kid Goku see Krillin, who's been struck down by a mysterious foe, entering the King Piccolo saga. Will Nam play a good part here? Or will Tien being knocked out cause some bigger tensions? Hey guys, it is Nick here with another Nick's Topics Dragon Ball What If Topic video for you guys today, and today I am bringing you guys part 4 of What If Nam Became a Z-Fighter. Now, to recap the last episode and an important plot point, Nam beat Tien in the preliminaries last time, instead of it being the other way around, where in the anime, Tien almost literally killed Nam to prove a point. But with Nam being much stronger than his canon counterpart, this makes for an interesting question. Does this mean that Tien is going to be a villain teaming up with King Piccolo, or will this just spark a Goku-Vegeta rivalry between Nam and Tien? This episode, we're going to figure that out together. Now, to end off the tournament after everything had happened, Kid Goku and Jackie Chun met again, but ultimately Jackie Chun surrendered because Goku knew it was Roshi and the two were beaten up for past matches, and it just pretty much went with Jackie Chun surrendering. Now, we ended off last episode with Kid Goku finding Krillin dead as before, and him ultimately going to find Tambourine, the killer, and lose to him, basically, in the first encounter. But that's not how it's going to go this time, because Kid Goku has backup in the form of Nam. Because, this is for a few reasons, not just for plot, but because it has a purpose. Nam had been around Krillin and everybody for a significant amount of time, right after the 21st World Martial Arts Tournament. So he understands Goku's feelings with Krillin dead, and he appreciated Krillin a lot too. So he goes with Goku, and on the first encounter, Tambourine is killed by the pair. Afterwards, King Piccolo, in shock that Tambourine has been slain by a kid and some villager, summons Symbol earlier than he did before, because he didn't expect Tambourine to be taken out this quickly. This will not do. And he makes sure to tell Symbol, you better do something that was better than what Tambourine showed. Afterwards, and after the fight with Tambourine, Goku and Nam, hungry, well, Kid Goku wasn't the original, but with the both of them hungry, they both go to the same place where Yajirobe is, as Goku did in canon, and get food. So, that pretty much plays out the same, except Nam is there also. Meanwhile, you guys might be asking, you mentioned Tien in this episode. Where is he? Is he going to play a part with King Piccolo? Well, he's currently getting insults hurled at him and just profanity just being thrown at him in all directions from Master Shen, who he really thought that Tien was his best warrior, and he lost in a single strike. And to top it all off, he actually had to rely on Chaozu, who did a better job in the tournament than Tien did in the preliminaries. And even with that, Chaozu lost to a child. And Master Shen is just hurling insults at them, and they cannot believe half the words that are coming out of their master's mouth. And eventually, when they realize the chaos that is going down with King Piccolo, they just abandon their master and just screw him. He doesn't know what truly happened. Anyways, while all this is going on, Symbol is taken out by the likes of Yajirobe, who I feel in this scenario would take Symbol out the exact same way because plot. Anyways, all these events lead up to the entrance of King Piccolo. Now, the fight is going to be playing out a lot differently this time. Not only are the Z fighters stronger here, specifically Goku and Nam, but Goku, along with everybody else, has had good, much more better combat training and ki training with Nam's inclusion. And this would be the same for Giran, this would be the same for Hercule, for anybody. An extra person like Nam gives the Z fighters a legs up, or heads up, whatever you want to go with. Anyways, King Piccolo, albeit a tough fight, is ultimately defeated. How is this? Because, as I said, much more better combat training and the inclusion of an extra fighter. And I feel that Kid Goku and Nam would just single-handedly take out King Piccolo without the help of Master Roshi. And Kid Goku, reminiscent to when he fought King Piccolo in his young state, punches straight through him. Now, why would he do this? Because I feel, because it would be a tough fight still, that this would be the end result. Now, King Piccolo still does hatch the egg for Piccolo Jr., his reincarnation, but it takes so much more strength before he dies that the egg almost doesn't come out right before he blows up. So Piccolo Jr. is born, but at a very close second, because it almost didn't happen, because it was done whenever King Piccolo was still old. Now, the reason I say Piccolo Jr. still gets to be in the story is because in my Hercule story, he was in the story, but it was King Piccolo. And with my Giran story, Piccolo was actually in that story. Anyways, after King Piccolo has been defeated, Tien and Chaozu approach the group. Now, the group is immediately taken back by this, thinking that Tien's here for some kind of revenge, and why he didn't act sooner. Tien then steps up to the group alone, and he puts his attention squarely at Nam, and he says that he wanted to wait for the right time to confront the group when he knew that no one was getting killed or anything. And he says that he wants to have a fair fight with Nam for the basically cheap shot that he did to him in the tournament because his master cussed him and Chaozu out for it. Nam, understanding that, he could have done things a little bit more fairly, understands what Tien is saying and that he just wants a fair fight to settle things, and that this will ultimately calm that tension, whatever tension might be rising. So he agrees to the fight. So, in the same place where they beat King Piccolo, and the same place where Kid Goku fought old King Piccolo in the anime, Nam and Tien prepare themselves, and the fight begins. And surprisingly, even though Tien is using his Dodon Ray, his Four Witches technique, his Solar Flare, and his small mimicry of the Kamehameha, Nam has his own wits about him, and is just as strong to boot, even a little bit more so than Tien, using even better combat strategies that Tien can't even accumulate with. Now, Tien does try his Tri-Beam whenever everything else fails, because he had thrown pretty much every other technique at Nam, and Nam had countered back with some moves of his own, some moves he got from Krillin and Yamcha, and Goku, albeit not like Kamehameha or anything. But when Tien goes for the Tri-Beam, Nam jumps up high into the air, and he launches straight down right at Tien with a full power cross-arm dive. And this almost knocks Tien out. He is seriously injured after this. But ultimately, Tien sees that this fight actually cleared his head a lot. And from what he understood about his master and just how wrong he was, he admits that Nam is stronger than him and says that this fight really helped to clear his head and everything is good, but that he wants to keep training with him so that way that he can get as strong as him. Now, shortly after this, Korin summons Goku and Nam for a particular water that might aid them in getting stronger. Hey guys, it is Nick here with another Nick's Topics Dragon Ball What If Topic video for you guys today. And today we're getting into part 5 of What If Nam Became a Z Fighter. Now, because of Nam's inclusion, like with Giran and Hercule, most of the Dragon Ball villains and scenes are cut short, to say the least. Because last time, we got to the defeat of King Piccolo in his old state with Kid Goku and Nam, who barely managed to beat him. Because it was a tough fight still. Because they were stronger, but it was still a tough fight nonetheless. Anyways, just before King Piccolo dies, because he still got punched through his stomach, even though he was old, because I feel like it would have played out that way, as I explained last time, just before he exploded from death, he still managed to hatch Piccolo Jr., but it was by sheer luck that he managed to live this time. Anyways, after all that's said and done, Tien wishes to fight Nam in a one-on-one fight because of Nam beating him flawlessly in the tournament preliminaries, which they do, and because of the evenness of this fight and that Tien actually gets to do something rather than be completely humiliated and then cussed out and humiliated by his teacher, this time he's actually satisfied even when he loses against Nam. Afterwards, telepathically, Korin communicates to Kid Goku and Nam, saying that he wants them to get the Ultra Divine Water to further their training progress. After the defeat of King Piccolo and everything, they deserve an extra reward alongside. Now, they get an extra visitor in the likes of Tien, because even though he lost, he still wants to not this time better himself on Goku's terms, but on Nam's. And that's what started this little rivalry between the two. So, with the likes of Tien, Nam, and Goku all getting the Ultra Divine Water, Korin then tells them about Kami's Lookout and the Guardian of Earth, and that now that their power levels have far exceeded what he even thought possible, they're ready for this kind of training. So the three advance to the Lookout and meet with the likes of Mr. Popo, and they get past his training a lot easier than Kid Goku did in the original, because it's 3 of them for one thing, and they are all stronger, including Goku, than their anime counterparts, and that goes without saying. So, sooner than before, they get to meet with Kami, the Guardian of Earth. Now, right when he steps out, like Kid Goku, they all immediately think that this is King Piccolo, and that they were tricked all this time, and Tien's a little on the back foot too, because he really thought that King Piccolo had died, because he didn't really see it go down. But just as the 3 of them go to attack, Kami pushes them back with a single finger shockwave and explains the reality behind who he is, who King Piccolo was, etc. And afterwards, he accepts all 3 of them into his training. Now, unlike the anime, my Giran story, and my Hercule story, there are 3 people training on Kami's Lookout when Kid Goku's around. So, this is going to intensify the training and the gains from the training by a lot. I mean a lot. Kid Goku had a power level of 275 by the time he beat King Piccolo. But afterwards, his power grew to over 300, including when he had his weighted clothing off. But with the likes of Nam and Tien in tow with him, Goku, by the time he reaches teen years, will now have a power level of 400, if not a little bit more. And with Nam and Tien, their powers are even close to him in the 300 and a halves, if not more. Because, like I said, the gains are very noticeable here. And another thing, Kami will not have to disguise himself as Hero to the tournament, because with the likes of 3 people here and their gains proving even more so noticeable than even Goku's in the original, Kami takes note of this and knows that he won't even need to be there. By the time the 23rd World Tournament begins to happen, Tien beats Mercenary Tao in one hit. Before, it was a little bit of a fight, but with Tien being much stronger than his anime counterpart, the fight is basically a mercy match, to say the least. It's just no contest. The next match with Goku and Chi-Chi plays out as you would expect. Same with Krillin versus Piccolo Jr. and Piccolo Jr.'s actual appearance. Now, because of Kami not disguising himself as Hero, that means that when it's Yamcha's turn to fight, he actually goes against the likes of Nam. And Nam, like I said, with him, Tien, and Goku, his gains are just as noticeable too. Besides Yamcha's Spirit Ball and slightly big power level that Nam takes note of, and the fact that it's a more friendly match, I'm not saying Hero versus Yamcha wasn't friendly, but all things considered, even with new things and new power to aid him, Yamcha almost gets knocked out like the first few minutes into the fight. Because, like I said, Nam would be near, like Tien, near Goku in the 400 range because of how noticeable the gains are and just Kami's training as a whole. Now, the next match, Goku versus Tien, goes a lot differently than the anime. It is much more close here. And even though Tien is close to Goku in power, taking off the weighted clothing, Tien probably would have weighted clothing as well, I guarantee it. But I feel that Goku, because plot, and just because how good Goku is as a fighter, he would win nonetheless. But it would be a very close match. Now, the next fight after would be Piccolo Jr. versus Hero. But since Kami did not take part because there was no need, Nam is the one to face Piccolo Jr. Now, Piccolo Jr. has small hallucinations of Nam from when he and Goku beat his father, but outside of that, Piccolo Jr. knows nothing about him and underestimates him, like most villains do, as just being a normal villager just taking part for funsies, basically. But, like Tien, he doesn't account for how strong Nam is, and he goes for a swift cross-arm dive, which immediately knocks out Piccolo, and afterwards, he is injured, dazed, confused, and angry, and immediately threatens to kill someone. But with Goku and everybody else in tow being stronger than him, for the most part, he can't do anything. He lost fair and square, reminiscent to Tien losing to Nam. Now, afterwards, you can just imagine the anger that Tien felt before is nothing compared to Piccolo Jr.'s anger right now. He really just wants to lay into someone and just eradicate them from existence for daring to mock him, and he should know who he is. But ultimately, he can't do anything, just flies off in anger, threatening his revenge. And I know this was anticlimactic, but it's just, I don't want to sound like a broken record when I say the gains are very noticeable here. Afterwards, the end game of the 23rd World Martial Arts Tournament plays out the same, with Goku ending up marrying Chi-Chi like before, and Gohan ultimately being born still. Now, Tien and Nam, I feel, would hang around Goku a lot of the time, but since they've started a rivalry, pretty much a friendly rivalry, more or less, much more friendly so than Goku and Vegeta's, I feel that they would be off on their own a lot of the time, but would still make time to train with Goku, because they're all friends, especially Nam. But with all this training and all these gains, we still have one particular enemy coming up that could either spell trouble or could be nothing at all like the others. Hey guys, it is Nick here with another Nick's Topics Dragon Ball What If topic video for you guys today. And today we are getting into part 6 of What If Nam Became a Z-Fighter. Now, to recap the last episode before we dive into the introduction of the Saiyan Saga, we see Nam in place of Hero because Kami didn't feel that his presence was required since Nam, Tien, and Goku were pretty much all more than strong enough to beat Piccolo. We see Nam one-shotting Piccolo Jr. out of the ring, similar to what he did to Tien when they first met in the preliminaries of the previous tournament. After waking up, realizing he lost, because this was a strong strike, enough to knock him out, unlike Tien. Now, after waking up, Piccolo Jr. immediately wants to kill someone, but with everyone stronger than him, he can't do anything and just flies off, vowing revenge. Similar to what Tien did, except more violently, so to speak. Afterwards, the end of the 23rd World Tournament plays out as you would expect, with the end results being Goku and Chi-Chi being married and Gohan still being born. Now, last time I discussed that while Tien and Nam would be around Goku most of the time, Nam especially, Tien and Nam have built up a rivalry ever since Nam one-shotted Tien in the 22nd tournament preliminaries. So they're off training together more times than not to understand each other and actually train together for the most part. Another side note, since pretty much every tournament so far has covered enough money for food, water, and materials for Nam's village, Nam hasn't felt the need to go back because he pretty much promised himself he was going to train with Goku and be an actual fighter of Earth like everybody else. But he still does visit the village from time to time because his people are there, his family, who he grew up with. So naturally, he's going to want to go back there and visit if he hasn't been there for a good amount of time. But anyways, with all that out of the way, we get into the start of the Raditz Saga, Saiyan Saga pretty much. Now, the build-up and introduction for Raditz plays out as you would expect up until Raditz and Piccolo meet. Now, this meeting is much more hostile than in the original because Piccolo's sheer anger at not being able to show his skills in the tournament and get his revenge. So, whenever Piccolo uses his super explosive wave on Raditz, this is a much more vengeful attack. Piccolo's going for the kill precisely here, and even though it does nothing like it did before, Piccolo is not deterred, at least not yet, because now he will show everything that he's got. He's not going to let anything stand in his way, not even this newcomer. So he throws off his turban in anger and rushes towards Raditz, using mouth beams, eye beams, ki blasts, you name it. Stretchy arm attacks, anything at Piccolo Jr.'s disposal at this point in the story, he uses everything. But sadly, even with all this and Piccolo going all out, his power level is still the same as it was in the original story at this point in time. So, while it does confuse and surprise Raditz that this green man just is so hostile towards him and that his power isn't bad to boot, it still doesn't do anything in the long run. And Raditz slowly starts to recognize this person as a Namekian, but he's not quite sure yet. He's getting on to something, but he wants to fight him for a little bit longer just to be sure, even though it really doesn't matter. He's here for Kakarot. But even though nothing's going his way yet, Piccolo Jr. still has one ace up his sleeve, his giant form, which he immediately turns to when he's put on the back foot. Now, at this point, Raditz is actually a little bit surprised, and at this point, he's definitely positive that this guy's a Namekian. Whatever confusion or doubt he had in his mind, this pretty much confirms it. And then he checks his scouter. The power level is over 500, And this definitely surprises Raditz. He didn't expect this, even from a Namekian on Earth. But he doesn't want this to cloud his judgment and continues, quote-unquote, fighting Piccolo. Now, while all this is going on, Goku, Gohan, Nam, Tien, Yamcha, Krillin, everybody else is at Kame House because this was the day where they were going to all meet, and you probably know the rest of this part of the story if you pay attention to Dragon Ball. Now, whenever everybody gets there and all is said and done, Goku picks up on something. First, he senses Piccolo. His power is over the roof, and he's clearly fighting someone. Then he senses the other power, and his heart skips a beat. This power it's insane. More so than he even thought. It's even greater than Piccolo's, and Piccolo's is even higher than it was at the tournament. And he wants to go check this out for himself. Now, Tien and Nam, even though they were just going to go whether Goku asked them to or not, Goku still asks them to come along just in case this other power is like a bad guy or something. He doesn't know anything yet. So Nam and Tien accompany Goku, along with Yamcha, who I feel would be at Kame House at this point in time. Now, there was a thing where Yamcha and Bulma were having a little bit of problems, so to speak, at this point in the story, but I feel that Yamcha would be at Kame House nonetheless for training to catch up with everyone else. Krillin also would naturally be there, so he would accompany the group as well. So, we have a 5-man team accompanying Goku, well, 4-man team, and accompanying Goku to go and see what's going on. So, I bet you guys are going to be really surprised with how this goes. Now, Piccolo, at this point, has reverted to his normal state, and he's definitely starting to get angry at this point. He's used everything at his disposal, even his giant form, and it's just not doing anything. He finally had the chance to show off everything at his disposal, and then this new guy just makes him look weak. It's just like the tournament all over again, except this time he actually gets to do something. And even after he starts using his super explosive wave, pretty much killing moves that he would have used in the tournament, it's just nothing. And he begins to slowly get tired and fall down. But just before Raditz uses his double Sunday, the move he was initially going to use on Piccolo when they first met, just before he was able to use the move, he's attacked by Goku. Now, this not only surprises Piccolo, because he didn't expect Goku or any of his friends to help him, but it surprises Raditz, because yeah, he came to Earth looking for his brother, but he didn't expect him to fight him out of nowhere and attack him like that. And after Raditz questions this, Raditz and Goku have a conversation. And this is the point in the story where Raditz would basically appear at Kame House, tell him who he is, and blah, blah, blah. Pretty much that's what happens here, except it's different circumstances because Goku's the one who came to him. So, and also Gohan isn't there, so we can't really hold him at hostage point. And Raditz basically tells the backstory of him, the Saiyans, and that he is Goku's brother. Now Nam, along everybody else, is very surprised and yet not surprised. Well, they're surprised that this guy's Goku's brother, but they're not surprised that Goku's a Saiyan, because they obviously knew that he was from a different planet. There is no way that the power that Goku has achieved would make him an Earthling. There's just no way. And even Nam picks up on this. But one person that does not care, you guessed it, is Piccolo, who is just, he doesn't know what to think at this point. He is angry, confused, and he's just shouts out, "Are you guys mocking me or something? I'm standing right here and you're just having a conversation about your backstory. I don't care about any of that. I'm the one that you are fighting here. Now either leave or fight me." And with that said, Piccolo, despite being very injured and tired, rushes at Raditz, and this is the point where the fight starts to pick up. Now, suffice it to say, even though Piccolo is injured, tired, and completely worn out, with him, Goku, Nam, Yamcha, Krillin, and Tien all fighting Raditz at the exact same time, and with everybody's growth, Raditz is pretty much screwed. Yeah, there is absolutely no way that he can win. And soon enough, that becomes clear. And with Raditz's dying words, he threatens the group, especially his brother, that 2 more Saiyans will be to the planet in 1 year's time and avenge his death. And there's no mention of Dragon Balls here because no one's died. And also Gohan is not present, he's at Kame House. Now, even though there's no mention of Dragon Balls, as I've mentioned in other stories, my other 2, I still feel that Vegeta and Nappa would go to Earth regardless, not only to see the strength of Goku and everybody else, but to pretty much avenge Raditz in some way, shape, or form. They didn't really care about him, but just to see, like, who was strong enough to beat Raditz, per se. Afterwards, the group is left to ponder this, when suddenly, Goku gets a telepathic message from Kami, stating that he wants everyone at the lookout, and that he has an idea for more special training that they might need for the Saiyans. What's going on, everybody? It is Nick here with another Nick's Topics Dragon Ball What If topic video for you guys today. And today we are getting into part 7 of What If Nam Became a Z-Fighter. Hope you guys like that little spice to my intros. Figure I might as well do something to give my intros a little bit more pizzazz. But anyways, to recap the last episode of What If Nam Became a Z-Fighter, we see the defeat of Raditz, but in a much more ganged up way in the form of Goku, Piccolo, Nam, Yamcha, Krillin, and Tien all ganging up on him, Piccolo being the most hurt out of them all, because this was during Piccolo and Raditz's first encounter. Aside from that, we hear about the entrance to Vegeta and Nappa and them coming to Earth in 1 year's time. But this time it's not the Dragon Balls, it's to see who killed Raditz, to see Kakarot, and pretty much everything else besides the Dragon Balls. Anyways, after Raditz's defeat, Kami telepathically communicates with Goku, saying that he has a method of training that they can use to help them against the Saiyans that will be there in 1 year. Now, we of course know this to be King Kai around this time. Even though Goku did not die, I still feel that training with King Kai would still be relevant at this point in the story. Anyways, now we have to discuss who is going to King Kai's. Well, first and foremost, Goku, of course, is going to go, for one thing, being the main character, and for another, Kami telepathically communicated with him specifically, knowing he's the strongest, and knowing that he, more than anyone, deserves the training, pretty much. Tien and Nam are the 2 next that wish to go and train with King Kai also. Because besides Goku, they're the 2 strongest on the planet. So it's best for all 3 of them to get the training done together, like they did whenever they first trained with Kami. Now, what about everyone else? Well, the other Earthlings, Yajirobe, Yamcha, Krillin, even Chaozu, you guys might be asking, why isn't Chaozu going with Tien? Well, you see, the thing about that is, Chaozu's still relevant, but I feel like he would just take up the training at the lookout, knowing that Tien isn't that far away. Anyways, what about Gohan? Well, since he was never kidnapped by Raditz, they don't know about his latent potential, but Goku still wishes for his son to be strong enough to defend the Earth when the time comes, much to Chi-Chi's chagrin and not knowing about it. But Kami promises to tutor Gohan in the ways of a warrior like he did with him and Tien and Nam and everything else. And with the Earthlings helping everything, Gohan, even though he's not training with Piccolo this time, will still have good training under his belt. And his hidden potential will be realized just a little bit later in the story. Now, as for Piccolo, he's going to be off training on his own because, for one thing, he and Kami still don't really get along. And for another, Piccolo hasn't really truly identified himself as a good person as of now. Because they didn't team up. Goku and his friends just went there to see what was going on. They didn't necessarily help him out of the goodness of their hearts. Anyways, when we get to King Yama, he enters all of them into Snake Way, albeit them not being dead. And soon enough, Goku, Tien, and Nam approach the entrance to Snake Way and begin their long journey. Now, even though there is 3 of them, I see it taking just the same amount of time that Goku took to get there in the original, if not a bit shorter, because of everyone's more proficient growth in the story. Soon enough, the 3 warriors get to King Kai's planet. Now, the next debatable question is, who gets what powers and how proficient are those powers to that certain person? Well, Goku, his training with the Kaioken and the Spirit Bomb, I feel, would remain mostly unchanged, outside of the fact that with Tien and Nam there, it would be even more noticeable. And if anything, his Kaioken times 3 would be pretty much mastered. Even level 4, I'm not going to go too overboard with the growth, but I can say up to level 4, he is pretty much mastered. As for level 5 Kaioken, that's like a halfway stretch, so it works in like some form of degree that he can actually turn it on without question. As for Tien, his training remains about the same as Goku's also, but since he's never trained on King Kai's planet, we can only speculate how his growth would be at this point in time. So I'm going to say with the Kaioken training, he at least masters up to level 3, if not 4, but I'm not going to go too overboard with the details. Now, as for the Spirit Bomb, I don't see Tien really using that move, per se, but hey, Tien has all kinds of crazy techniques, so the Spirit Bomb isn't too far out of the question, it's just not something that I see him using. Now, as for Nam, since he's the primary focus of the story, I see him using the Kaioken, definitely, up to maybe level 3 or 4, like Tien. But as for the Spirit Bomb, Nam is a definite, no for me. I don't see him using that move at all. But since we've never seen him use any key attacks, it's pretty much speculation as to what he would actually get here. Now, after all is said and done, we get to the entrance of Vegeta and Nappa already on Earth, and Nappa's destruction of the city that they appear in. Now, here's something really important to be taken into account here. Even though we still have to account for how long it took them to get to King Kai's and back, they all are not dead for one thing, and 2, Goku especially is stronger and faster than his canon self. So, my guess is that all 3 of them would get back just when the Saiyans arrive on Earth. So it's pretty much right in the moment sort of thing. But hey, this is all speculation. Now, as for the Cybermen fight, that goes as you would expect, but Tien beats the Cybermen far more easily. As for Yamcha, rest in peace, because I still feel that he would die to his Cybermen, which in turn causes Krillin to kill the others, and Piccolo kill his a lot more violently, because for one thing, still not really a good guy, and number 2, he hasn't had Gohan to really warm his heart. So, he is a lot more cold in this story. Now, here's another thing, speaking of Piccolo, no one has seen his new move. It's the Special Beam Cannon. Now, why is this important? Well, during Piccolo's first encounter with Raditz, since he was easily one-shotted by Nom in the 23rd tournament, he didn't get to show off any of his skills, but then got to against Raditz. So this is pretty much a rehash of that, but with just one skill and not a bunch. So, when we get to the part of Nappa powering up and going after Krillin to start, this is Piccolo's time to strike. After he is basically getting ready to attack Krillin, Piccolo, after charging the Special Beam Cannon and having practiced with it all on his own, fires the beam. Now, if you think that this is just going to kill Nappa because he's mainly focused on Krillin, well, it pretty much does what Piccolo's shockwave towards Nappa does, and it does nothing. But this Special Beam Cannon basically takes a factor from when Piccolo used it on Raditz first and only scars Nappa's armor. Afterwards, Nappa throws off his armor and is actually quite annoyed for one thing that it actually hurt his shoulder a little bit, and for another, that Piccolo interfered with his target. And since this Namekian wants to get in the way, he'll just be the first to go. Well, second to go if you don't count Yamcha, but he didn't technically kill Yamcha, the Cybermen did. Anyways, with that out of the way, rest in peace Yamcha, Nappa prepares his signature move, the Bomber DX. But right when he's doing this, Tien, being a team player and recognizing Piccolo as a teammate at this point, even though Piccolo might not think about any of them, Tien powers up to the highest Kaioken that he can muster, and with this, fires a full-power Spirit Tri-Beam. Now, you would think that this would kill him like it did whenever he used it against Nappa in the original, but Tien is a lot stronger here, and with Kaioken, this doesn't take all the energy out of him, plus he was way more injured in the story. Anyways, with this full-power Kaioken Spirit Tri-Beam, Nappa is completely incinerated without even having the actual time to process what's happening. Afterwards, Vegeta is rather taken aback. He expected this from maybe Kakarot and the Namekian, but from a mere Earthling, he did not expect Nappa to be completely incinerated in one blast. And this either means that Nappa is far more weaker than he gave him credit for, or he's gotten himself into a lot more trouble than he might have planned for. Hello everybody, it is Nick here with another Nick's Topics Dragon Ball What If Topic video for you guys today. And today, we're getting into part 8 of What If Nom Became a Z-Fighter. Now, for the last episode, to recap, Nappa was defeated already by the likes of 1. Piccolo, who had not yet gotten the chance to use the Special Beam Cannon, sort of reminiscent to when he fought Raditz, and in the 23rd tournament he didn't get to use any of his skills there. So, sort of like a mismatch between him and Tien, honestly, throughout this series, except Piccolo way more. Anyways, Piccolo using the Special Beam Cannon, pretty much the same effect as when he used it against Raditz, the first time, not the second time. Nappa throws off his armor in anger and prepares a Bomber DX to try and kill Piccolo. But, luckily, Tien, who had been training on King Kai's with Nom and Goku, powers up to the highest level Kaioken he can muster, and fires a full-power Spirit Tri-Beam at Nappa, which completely incinerates Nappa in the blink of an eye. The Special Beam Cannon only scarred his shoulder, but this just straight up killed him. There's not even a trace of him left. Vegeta, after seeing this, is questioning to himself whether Nappa was just that weak, or whether these Earthlings, Namekian and Saiyans, whether all these people are actually stronger than he gave them credit for. And he has to think this to himself because he's got to keep his composure. And now he has to face them himself. And Yamcha is the only one who has died as of now. Now, when it comes to the fight with Vegeta, Vegeta powers up straight away because he saw the power on display from Tien, and he's not going to make that same mistake again. So, if you think that somehow him powering up will matter in the grand scheme of things, Yamcha might be dead. And if you guys are wondering about the picture, it's because I represented all the fighters for this saga. You'll just pretend Yamcha, just remember that he's dead. So he's just there for display. Anyways, with Piccolo, Nam, Goku, Tien, Krillin, and Gohan, who'd been training with Kami instead of Piccolo, all ganged up against him, Vegeta almost has little to no chance. The fighters don't even have to use Kaioken. And if they do, well, Goku, Tien, and Nam mainly, it's really still not necessary. And soon enough, Vegeta himself realizes this and realized that Nappa, he wasn't exactly weak. Well, he was in standards to him, but it made sense that he lost. Which in turn makes Vegeta have to resort to his power pole to transform into an Ozaru. So, Great Ape Vegeta makes his appearance, and now the fighters, especially Goku, Tien, and Nam, have to actually start trying their hardest. But, luckily, not for long, because Krillin has a plan to cut off Vegeta's tail, because everyone knows about the Saiyan tail at this point in time. So, while everyone, except Krillin, are distracting Great Ape Vegeta enough so to get him off Krillin's back, because he doesn't even know where Krillin is, Krillin then charges up his Destructo Disc. This would be the first time that he's actually used it, since Nappa was pretty much killed right then and there. He fires a full-power Destructo Disc right at Vegeta's tail, cutting it off instantly. Now, Vegeta is pretty much... he has no chance of winning. All his regular moves, even his full power, didn't work against all of them. His Ozaru didn't work against all of them. And now he's looking pretty worse for wear. But he's not finished yet. He still tries to fight, but it's just no use. In the end, he just has to be forced to retreat, like he did before. But he's not actually going to have that opportunity this time. And this is also reminiscent to a other story of mine. I forget whether it was the Hercule or Giran story. Right before he's about to retreat, except this time it's a way different instance, Piccolo, who has not had any kind of redemption since Gohan did not train with him, he didn't really have any soul, real redemption arc, Piccolo just blasts him without any care in the world, much to Goku's chagrin, honestly. He would be the only one that would care that Piccolo just killed Vegeta. So Vegeta is dead way earlier on in the show, sort of like my either Hercule or Giran What If, I'm not sure which one, but I think it was the Giran one. Anyway, getting sidetracked. Afterwards, Shenron is summoned, and all the people who lost their lives in the city Nappa and Vegeta destroyed, as well as Yamcha, are restored, which means that they don't have to worry about Dragon Balls. But then we cut to a very interesting thing, because now we have to talk about something. Does Namek still happen, and does Frieza still go there? Because there was no talk about Dragon Balls. But here's another thing. Raditz, Nappa, and Vegeta all pointed out that Piccolo was a Namekian. So I feel that this would sway Frieza to check out Namek for the fabled story of the Dragon Balls. So Namek will still happen. Frieza's still going to go there, but it's not aroused around Dragon Balls completely. It's just to check, honestly. Kui is going to stay on the planet he was at because Vegeta's dead. Not really important in the grand scheme of things for him, but it's still something to know. Now, as for how the others are going, the Z-Fighters are going to come about Namek, well, that's also hard, because Piccolo, as I've said, hasn't really gotten a redemption, so I feel that he wouldn't care about Namek, honestly. And even if a slimmer of him did, I feel that that would be sidetracked back to him just being evil, honestly. But then we have to remember that Kami is a thing, and I feel that he would want to know what his true roots are and ask the others to check it out for him because he can't leave Earth. And I feel that the other Z Fighters would also want to go to Namek, check it out, because why not? Anyways, they would not use Kami's ship. They would come about it, but because of Goku's, Tien's, and Nam's training on King Kai's world, I feel that their ship would be modified into the capsule ship that Goku used in the original. Like I've said before in my other few stories of Dragon Ball, even if the Dragon Balls weren't purely mentioned, and even if they didn't have a reason, like, if everyone lived in the Saiyan Saga, I feel that they would go there regardless in some cases, in more cases than one, and I don't think people really look into that as much as I think they should. But it is a what if, anything could happen. Now, what do you guys think is going to happen going down the road without Vegeta in the story, for one thing, even though we've already discussed what could happen before, but even though Vegeta's gone again, it's not going to be the same story. Well, obviously, because Nam's a part of it and there are many changes. So what do you guys think is going to happen? And how will the battle with Frieza ultimately turn out? Hello everybody, it is Nick here with another Nick's Topics Dragon Ball What If topic video for you guys today. And today, we are getting into part 9 of What If Nam Became a Z Fighter, which I hope you guys are liking the story so far. Last time, like my What If Giran Became a Z Fighter story, Vegeta was killed in the end by Piccolo before he could retreat. Now, that part's pretty much the same as before, but if you think Vegeta is going to be not relevant anymore like before, spoilers, that's not going to happen. Vegeta will come back, but I'm just not going to say when. So, you have that to entertain your minds. Anyways, aside from that, after the fight with Nappa and Vegeta, more like mercy killing, Shenron summoned only to bring back Yamcha. Now, like my other stories, Namek is still going to happen, regardless of Piccolo and Kami not dying, basically. Because I feel that Piccolo being mentioned as a Namekian throughout all the Saiyans saying it would make him or Kami at least somewhat curious as to what their roots are. Kami more so in this story, because Piccolo really hasn't got redemption in this story. Anyways, Frieza would also still go to Namek, but he would only do so overhearing Vegeta, Nappa, and Raditz say about a Namekian on Earth, and hearing the stories about the Namekians. So this time it's not just solely for the Dragon Balls, but to investigate and see if the stories are true. So, I mean, that was more or less so the reason before, but more hinted towards the Dragon Balls in the original story, because they were actually mentioned. Now, as for the fighters themselves, Piccolo, Nam, Yamcha, Goku, Tien, Krillin, and Gohan, who was trained by Kami instead of Piccolo, are all going to go to Namek just because Kami wants them to, Kami wanted Piccolo mainly to go to find out what the roots are because he can't go himself because he's the Guardian. And the others all want to go because they're curious as to what Namek is about too. And there's no one that, to their knowledge, that would be there, bad-wise. So, with Goku, Tien, and Nam having trained on King Kai's prior, they ask Dr. Briefs and Bulma to make them a ship with gravity training, so that way everyone else can learn the Kaioken, and they can up theirs. So, it's a win-win for everybody. So, on the trip, because we're already getting to that point, Goku gets up to level 20 of the Kaioken, pretty much what he got to before, but a little higher because he actually managed to withstand level 5 Kaioken with Tien and Nam on King Kai's planet. So it's a little over level 20 for him at this point in time. So he's just that little bit stronger. As for Tien, I feel that he would get accustomed to at least level 18, if not 20 of the Kaioken. I'm not going to go too far, but I don't want to give him a low number at this point in the story either. Nam, I feel, would be on the same playing field as Tien, if not higher, because he was stronger than Tien to begin with, but more or less panded down whenever he and Tien became rivals, so that way they could have like a friendly rivalry, so to speak. Not like a Goku and Vegeta one, which started out ugly, and then more or less so became like sort of good, yet not. You guys know the story. It's basically a much nicer version of the Goku and Vegeta rivalry. Anyways, Krillin, I feel, getting Kaioken for the first time would at least get to level 10, same with Yamcha, because they're getting the first grasps on Kaioken, but I also don't want to dim it down to make them feel insufficient as fighters. Now, Piccolo, I feel, would still get the Kaioken like everybody else, and get it to past level 10, if not, like, at level 10, because for Piccolo, I want to give him good standards, because we all know Piccolo's a tough fighter, and how he would get grasped with the Kaioken makes sense. It would be like level 10, if not higher. Now, as for Gohan, I feel that he wouldn't get the Kaioken. Maybe get like accustomed to level 1, if not 2, but I feel that the main target for him would be getting accustomed to gravity training, because he is like 4, 5, whatever age he was at this time. Now, when they get to Namek, all is pretty much in the story goes per normal, except the whole group is watching whenever Frieza attacks Elder Mori's village. So the whole group is there, not just Kid Gohan and Krillin. So they're all watching as this goes down, but they're not doing anything yet because they sensed everybody's powers, especially Frieza's. But when the 3 warrior Namekians show up and begin to get slowly overpowered by Dodoria, who then steps in, that's when the fighters know they have to make a strike. More Namekians are dying. This is not going well. So, Tien, with his quick thinking, uses the solar flare, blinding all the soldiers, including Frieza. Just at that moment, while they're all blinded, Tien himself and Nam do a tag team attack. Tien firing a full power spirit tri-beam, akin to what he did against the likes of Nappa, right at Dodoria, while Nam uses a full power cross-arm dive at Zarbon. Now, with the two of them heavily blinded, none of them know what's going on, and the few soldiers that were there get iced by the other fighters. But Dodoria and Zarbon are taken out by the likes of Nam and Tien, dimming down Frieza's forces straight at the start of the Namek arc. Now, no one attacked Frieza except the blinding attack from Tien and just a few blasts for good measure to keep him distracted, because sensing Frieza's power, they knew that they could not fight him outright. It was just too much. And after realizing that he was ambushed and now he has no way of knowing where the Dragon Balls are now, Frieza gets angry and goes back to his ship to regroup and think of a plan. Now, all the other warriors get the Namekians while Tien and Nam were doing their thing, and everyone regroups and goes to the last Namekian village standing, where they all hunker down for now to see if they can make a plan of some sort to fight Frieza. The Namekians then tell the group about Guru and that he might be able to help. The group all goes there because they have time. Frieza doesn't have any scouters or anything to track them. So they go to Guru's palace and confront Nail, who sees them all as not evildoers, except Piccolo, sorta kinda, but he sees them more as just part of his people and just a misguided Namekian. Then all the group gets to meet with Grand Elder Guru, who tells them all about the Namekian past and everything. They learn about him and the Namekians and about Kami and Piccolo once being like the same person, pretty much all that stuff they learned before. And Guru unlocks all of the warrior's potential, including Gohan's. That's most notable because he didn't get really efficient training outside gravity training. Anyways, Frieza, having been tricked, ambushed, and no scouters, calls upon the Ginyu Force, who, soon enough, arrive with the new up-to-date scouters and Kui in tow. Why is Kui coming here even though Vegeta's dead? Well, I feel that with Kui's 18,000 power level, he would still be a good asset as a soldier to have alongside the Ginyu Force because Frieza just lost to Doria and Zarbon. But when Kui and the Ginyu Force arrive at the Namekian village where everyone's tracked, all of the powers suddenly vanish. And then all the warriors and Namekians charge out, preparing an ambush against Kui and the Ginyu Force. Kui is the first one to be taken down almost instantaneously, and the rest of Ginyu's force doesn't have time to cope. Ginyu is the only one to make it out, and he is heavily injured. But as we saw in the original story, Ginyu can take a very hard beating, impaling himself, getting trounced by Vegeta. We all know that Ginyu's pretty much nigh indestructible because, look, they returned him as super. Anyways, Ginyu, seeing no other way out, tracks the strongest power level before they trounce him next, which is Goku, and does his signature body change, which no one can tell him to counter because they don't know what's going on. And then we get the introduction to Ginyu Goku. But, unfortunately, this was such a last-ditch effort, and this is even more rushed for Ginyu to change into his body this time, and he makes the same mistake as he did before in the original story with not knowing how Goku's body works and instantly trying to rush hoping it did something. But that plan gets lopsided and Ginyu gets killed this time instead of being changed into a frog like the original story. And Goku gets healed by the Namekians once all is said and done. Because all the Namekians are still alive, because the warrior Namekians and the Z-Fighters themselves all trounced the Ginyu Force and Kui. This was a complete and total ambush on the part of Frieza's forces. Now, after realizing the Ginyu Force and Kui were taken out almost immediately, Frieza knows that he has to take matters into his own hands now, and he should have trounced them whenever he was attacked in the freaking Elder Mori's village in the first place. So soon enough, he arrives at the village, but rushes in, like he does in the story with all of his forms, and making the same mistake that his men did, and this time the Namekians staying back, as Yamcha, Nam, Krillin, Goku, Tien, Gohan, and Piccolo all charge up their full power Kaiokens, everything they can muster, and right when Frieza gets in vicinity of the village, they fire their strongest blasts, and before Frieza has even time to process what's happening, he is instantly vaporized, and a huge beam of light charges into space, emanating how much power was put into this attack, because this was a lot of power. But that officially ends the Namek saga. Quick, I know, but with an efficient warrior like Nam on the team, it really downs the amount of time the saga is put, like in the original story. So afterwards, Porunga restores the damage done, and all the Namekians are brought back to life. But there's another loose end that nobody knows about yet, because there's no Vegeta to be able to help them or tell them. King Cold is still alive. Will he make a difference in avenging his son? And how will the future Trunks timeline go in this story? Hello everybody, it is Nick here with another Nick's Topics Dragon Ball What If topic video for you guys today. And today, I am bringing you guys part 10 of What If Nam Became a Z-Fighter. Now, to recap the last episode, we ended off with Frieza's defeat in his first form, and ironically, being done with another saga right off the bat because of Nom's inclusion, or just an extra fighter's inclusion. It really changes the story if you guys have not told from my Giran and Hercule what-ifs. Anyways, Nom, Piccolo, Yamcha, Krillin, Gohan, Goku, and Tien all powered up to their max and stage a surprise sneak attack, much to Frieza's chagrin, and he couldn't do anything about it. He couldn't even transform in time to defend himself. So, the Frieza saga was wrapped up. Oh, and another thing I forgot to mention, since Guru tapped into everybody's potential, that also gave them an extra leg up, so Frieza was completely done either way. Even if he had transformed into his final state, it still would have taken a lot out of him, so it wouldn't have ultimately mattered in the end. Anyways, after Frieza and his forces defeat, this time, Porunga is summoned and the Namekians were brought back to life because no one else needed to be brought back. Yamcha was the only one that died in the Saiyan attack, ironically. Anyways, Nail, like my other stories, gets to remain a separate person. Now, why did he not fuse with Piccolo in this story since Piccolo's around? Well, I feel that with Piccolo not really getting a true redemption, that he wouldn't be inclined to fuse because there's not really a true need. He could have fused whenever he fought Frieza and sneak attack him, but I still feel that Piccolo wouldn't be inclined to do that with his character development in this story. Now let's get on to talking about King Cold, because shortly after finding out that Frieza is dead, in his first form no less, finding out that it was from a Saiyan, a half Saiyan, and a bunch of humans and Namekians, King Cold is obviously rather upset about this and stages his own attack upon the Earth, which he knows to be the Saiyans and Earthlings and Namekians' home. But who attacks this time and kills King Cold and his forces rather effectively surprises everyone, and with Goku actually here on the scene and not going to Yardrat, him and everybody else, Goku especially, is surprised at who this person is. And Nam being the most surprised out of everyone. Now, who is this mysterious assailant that took out King Cold and his forces right there on the spot? Well, it is none other than future Nam, rocking a black beard and looking a much older version of the Nam that we know, taking on a similar appearance to his GT self. Now, why is Nam the one who goes back in time? Well, that has to do with a lot of things, and there is a good explanation behind all of this. Vegeta not being there is one of them. But onto the main focuses, we're going to talk about Goku and the Heart Virus. Now, few people on my other stories and facts and stuff that I've seen on the internet and YouTube state that Goku got the virus from Earth and that it was an Earth-born virus. I stick by the decision that he got the virus from Yardrat because even though it might have been an Earth-born virus, the vaccine for it took a long time, up until Trunks was the only survivor left. So, if a vaccine had been made then why was Goku the only one to get it? No one else got it, not at least that we were aware of. And he was the only one to have gotten it. So Yardrat being the primary reason seems the most logical out of anything else. I'm sorry for those of you that might disagree, but I feel that that's the primary reason. Anyways, even if he did get the virus from Earth, the androids would kill him nonetheless. Because even if he survived the heart virus or never got it, he would be killed by the androids nonetheless. Now, future Gohan still survives, and actually attains not only Super Saiyan after his father's death at the hands of the androids, but stacks Kaioken on top of it for better training. Because remember, Gohan learned the Kaioken on their way to Namek and from Namek after. And he is the only primary survivor. Now what about Trunks? Well, Trunks would still be born in the story, except without Vegeta, he wouldn't be a Saiyan. He wouldn't be that same Trunks. He would still look the same most likely and still rock the sword and everything, but he would be the spawn of Bulma and Yamcha rather than the spawn of Bulma and Vegeta, because Vegeta is gone in this story. Now, what about Nam, you might ask? Well, after the whole thing with the androids, Nam initially wanted to go and just hide out at his village and just forget about all of this, but he remembered that he took an oath to train with everybody and stand by their side. So he used his resources, his cunning, and expertise to survive, and Gohan and Trunks and whoever else was left allowed to buy time for him to go to the past and warn everybody about the androids. Nam, especially after hearing the story and hearing about what his other self had gone through, understands this, and his future self even tells him, train harder than you ever have before, and don't ever leave your friends for even a second, because you don't know what can happen. He also tells Goku to achieve and master, as much as he can, the Super Saiyan form, which, in the time skip leading up to the androids, Goku effectively does. Now, why does Nam tell him about going Super Saiyan and not Gohan? Well, Goku died almost immediately, and even if they had heard about the Super Saiyan from Guru, Gohan had much more mastery over it in the future, and Nam wants to make sure that Goku has that right away, so that whenever Gohan gets it, the both of them are on a good playing field. So, not only does Goku get the Super Saiyan form, but training with it effectively, he gets it to grade 2, I'll say at max. Gohan also gets it to the same level, and they practice with Super Kaioken and use it very effectively. Now, as for the Earthlings, Piccolo, and everybody else, they get their training to 110% to make sure that they are absolutely ready for the androids. Speaking of which, the fated day comes where 19 and Gero appear on the island 9 miles off of South City. But does this training really amount to anything, or will this saga end up being as short as many of the others? Hello everybody, it is Nick here with another Nick's Topics Dragon Ball What If topic video for you guys today. And today, I am bringing you guys part 11 of What If Nam Became a Z-Fighter. Hope you guys have been enjoying the series so far, and now for a little recap of the last episode. Last time, King Cold, having lost Frieza in his first form on Namek with a combined attack from all the Z-Fighters, planned a revenge attack on the Earthlings and Goku for what they did to Frieza. But this time, instead of future Trunks, we get future Nam, an older version of Nam, akin to what he looked like in GT, who actually is one of the few survivors in the future Trunks timeline. A few others being future Gohan, who still survived, and unlike the other future Gohan, this one not only kept both of his arms, but he also attained the Super Saiyan and Kaioken powers. Well, he kind of already had experience with Kaioken, but knowing Gohan, this Gohan actually had the idea to use both Super Saiyan and Kaioken together. We saw a little bit of that with the Otherworld tournament, which is non-canon, and Super Saiyan Blue and Kaioken, which is canon. So, for this to happen, Gohan would have to push himself very rigorously, but Nam isn't the only one besides Gohan who's alive, because Trunks is still alive and still rocking the sword, and he's still powerful, but unfortunately, he is an Earthling. Because of Vegeta's death way early on, this means that Yamcha and Bulma are the ones to have Trunks as a kid rather than Vegeta and Bulma. Because with Vegeta dead, I felt that Yamcha and Bulma would keep their relationship to a somewhat good standard, and over time, it would mend. It was only because of Vegeta that it was just a simple friendship, nonetheless. Anyways, with future Nam, he explains all of this to Goku and Nam, the present ones, and tells Goku to achieve the Super Saiyan form first. Because if he can get that form first, and by extension, training with the Kaioken, this might rub off on Gohan and further solve their training, making them strong enough to combat the androids. And it works! Not only does Goku use the Super Saiyan and Kaioken form somewhat effectively, but it also rubs off on Gohan. But by the 3-year time skip, I feel that they would at least both have Super Kaioken level 1, especially Gohan. Maybe Goku would have a few stages higher, but Gohan, this Gohan I don't see having that same thing, because future Gohan pushed himself. It wasn't until he grew up to like adult years that he actually was able to use the Super Saiyan and Kaioken forms effectively. Now when we get to 19 and Gero still attacks Yamcha, but Yamcha doesn't let Dr. Gero get a grip on him this time, because this Yamcha is much stronger than the original. Because with the training of Kaioken and him basically having much better training and skill than the original Yamcha, he's actually able to not get impaled and get his energy sucked away. After that, all things progress as they do, up till we see the fight with Goku in 19, which I feel would still be kind of the same, maybe a little bit different, depending on how much data 19 and Gero collected from Goku and the others. But I still feel it would be sort of the same fight, if not maybe Goku a little bit more on the advantage. Meanwhile, Tien, Nam, Piccolo, and all the others are facing Dr. Gero rather than just standing there like they did in the original story, because that was apparently a thing. Anyways, after 19 absorbs Goku's Kamehameha, and Yamcha having some recollection as to what they were trying to do, that actually makes perfect sense now. This puts all things together, and they realize that the androids are trying to suck away their energy. Yamcha having a little bit of first-hand experience, almost having it happen to him. After figuring this little thing out, Dr. Gero gets one of his arms cut off in a flash by Piccolo, and Tien and Nam are about to make a dive straight for the other one, but with Dr. Gero's cunning and expertise in the art of combat and maneuvering, he's able to get away from them before his other arm can become powder, pretty much. 19 isn't so lucky. Goku is much more cunning, and he knows what everybody else is doing. He knows about the android's absorption technique now. So, he slices both the arms off of 19 and blasts him straight on, and this incinerates 19. Dr. Gero is able to actually hold himself back with his other hand, while also trying to make sure that it doesn't get sliced off in the process. But, nonetheless, in the wasteland, mind you, not the mountains, he retreats, because he retreated in the mountains. So this is a location away from when he actually retreated and was backed into a corner. So this just tells you how far ahead the warriors are. Afterwards, Dr. Gero retreating, Bulma arrives on the scene, and with her knowledge, the others find out where Dr. Gero's lab is and head for it. Now, after this, besides the fact that Vegeta is not there, as well as future Trunks, because I don't feel that he would make a true appearance, Not much changes with this scene outside of the initial story, but there is something to note here. From my What If Hercule Became a Z-Fighter, present Cell was a problem. Not with my Giran story, because there was time travel, but not in Hercule's story. Now, with the inclusion of the future timeline, that means whenever the androids are awakened and everything, this means that with the future timeline, anyone being from that timeline, even if they had not met Cell, I feel that either before or after Imperfect Cell made an appearance, that the lab would be destroyed, even including present Cell. So this could have been before or after the androids or Imperfect Cell made his appearance, but that's going to be brought up more in a moment. Anyways, when the Z-Fighters get to the lab, Dr. Gero still dies to 17 and 18. And speaking of whom, that's another thing to discuss. With Goku and Gohan having accustomed to the Super Saiyan form, and with Nam and Tien most likely training with them, this brings up something questionable, honestly. Would 17 and 18 lose their first encounter here, rather than the Z-Fighters having to retreat? Well, if 16 was awakened, I see the Z-Fighters retreating like my past stories. But if 16 was not awakened, I see the androids losing here, but I see 16 most likely still getting awoken nonetheless, which in turn would make the Z-Fighters retreat, go up to Kami's lookout, Kami realizing this and also realizing Perfect Cell, or Imperfect Cell, mind you, and realizing that one of the only chances they got is for him and Piccolo to merge, the other being the Z-Fighters using the hyperbolic time chamber. So Piccolo fuses with Kami, and as for everyone else, they use the hyperbolic time chamber, with Goku and Gohan noticeably, aside from Nam and Tien, getting very good gains, and afterwards completely dominating the androids. This is akin to my What If Hercule Was a Z-Fighter story, where this similarly happened. I just see it happening in a different way because of Nam's influence. Afterwards, whether or not the lab was destroyed before Imperfect Cell made an appearance, Imperfect Cell would still be found, killed, and then present Cell in the lab would be destroyed. Either way, I see that scenario happening, but it really wouldn't change the overall dynamic of the story, so I'm not going to go in depth detail about what would happen. Anyways, with Kami fusing with Piccolo, that means they need a new Guardian, which I see Dende still offering, because Nail is still around, but he is the Dragon Clan. He's the Warrior Clan, not the Dragon Clan. So I feel that he would stay on Namek nonetheless, seeing Dende be the new Guardian. During the time skip between the Cell arc, what would have been the Cell arc, and the Buu saga, Goten is still born, and as for Hercule, since he did not participate in the Cell games, and did not proclaim that he killed Cell, he still is the martial arts champion, but his popularity isn't up as high because he didn't get the win that he really, truly thought he deserved. And with that, we are going to end off here. Hello everybody, it is Nick here with another Nick's Topics Dragon Ball What If Topic video for you guys today, and today we are getting into part 12 of What If Nam Became a Z-Fighter. Now, spoiler alert, this saga is just going to be as short as all of the others, because as I've said in many of my Dragon Ball videos, if another character, this could be for any movie or story, if another character, no matter how small, was to be introduced, the story might be cut short. Anyways, to recap, Dende was made Guardian after the android's defeat, Goten was born, and Hercule was never given the true chance to be champion. Well, he was, except for the fact that he didn't kill Cell, which kind of took that bigger popularity away. So Now he's just the martial arts champion. Anyways, now we dive into the Supreme Kai and Kibito saga, or Majin Buu saga, whatever saga technically you want to call it. But before we get on to the saga itself, let's talk about the growth of some of the characters going into the saga. During the time skip between the kind of android saga, Goku gets Super Saiyan 2 alongside Gohan, and since they had trained with Kaioken before this, because of what future Nam told them, they kind of have it down with Super Saiyan 2, but they mainly use it with the Super Saiyan 1 form because it's more manageable and it doesn't take as much strength. Tien and Nam are the closest behind Goku and Gohan, so they're the third and fourth strongest, naturally. And Piccolo is the next in line. Why is Piccolo weaker than Tien and Nam? Well, just look at how he ended up whenever he was in the 23rd World Tournament. That'll answer all your questions. Anyways, when we get to the tournament itself, Goten beats Trunks because since Trunks is the spawn of Yamcha and Bulma, he's not a Saiyan, so he's going to be a lot weaker than an actual Saiyan Goten, who I'm going to say is the same power level as he was in the original story. But regardless, he wins, beats Hercule, and nothing really major happens besides that. Then we get to when Krillin would initially fight Pintar, but Yamcha would take that stead, since he's been fighting and training with everybody else a lot more than his original counterpart, which they did nothing with. Anyways, aside from meaningless jabber about other characters, as for Gohan and Videl, in my Hercule story, these two actually hooked up a lot earlier on, and Videl was a lot stronger. But this would just be their usual encounter in this story, but Gohan, I feel, would train Videl up still to a decent amount. So, whenever she faces off against Spopovich, she is able to best him, but it does take more effort than when she fought him in my Hercule story, obviously. Go back and watch that for some context. Anyways, when we get to the Gohan versus Kibito fight, Gohan is a lot more trained than his original counterpart, and he's actually wearing his Goku outfit rather than the Great Saiyaman. Now, the Great Saiyaman, I feel, might have happened still, but I feel that Gohan would still wear his father's attire. But regardless of his attire, he'd go Super Saiyan 2, the Supreme Kai would try to restrain him, and it would be a lot harder because of Gohan's growth, but he still does get caught by Spopovich and Yamu, who then proceed to drain his energy and retreat back to Babidi. And that pretty much goes as you would expect. Now, who is going to go to Babidi's ship? Well, the group consists of Goku, Tien, Nam, Yamcha, Krillin, Piccolo, and Gohan. A lot of characters missing here, and the ones that were there in the original story are a lot more powered up. Some of the characters, like Tien and Nam, weren't even in, like, the Buu saga at all, besides Nam making a cameo, and then Tien appearing to fight Buu tanks. Anyways, aside from talking about that stuff, when we get to the scene of Babidi, Yamu, and Spopovich at Babidi's ship, Babidi still kills them like before without knowing that there is much more energy in his container than he could have possibly imagined. Anyways, we then cut to the scene where Deborah kills Kibito, which still happens. But his next attempt on an attack on someone else, preferably Krillin because that's who he attacked in the original story, doesn't go the way that he had thought. Before he can even think about using his spit to attack Krillin, Tien uses a full-power solar flare, and then Nam cuts in with a full-power cross-arm dive. Now, I have used this similar tag team move before, or at least Tien and Nam using these kinds of, like, tag team attacks before in different parts, but that's because of where Tien and Nam's rivalry is at, and how much it has grown over the series. Naturally, they would come up with a lot of tag team moves like this if they ever had their backs in a corner. Now, if Deborah he would most definitely survive the Solar Flare, just blind you. But if he had survived Nam's cross-arm dive, depending on if Nam used the Kaioken or not at full power, regardless, had he survived, Goku, Gohan, or someone else would have finished him right then in that moment. So Deborah is done for anyways. After this, Babidi is in complete and utter shock that Deborah lost to Earthlings, his best warrior. Now he's going to have a lot of trouble on his hands if the humans of this planet are that strong. After this, on the outside, everyone is in good spirits that they just beat this somewhat demon king, but Supreme Kai is still kind of sad that Kibito's dead, but they can just wish him back with the Dragon Balls later. But they have to defeat Babidi and stop Majin Buu's resurrection first. Anyways, they go into the ship, and Yakan and Pui Pui are pretty much mincemeat. They are no kind of match to any one of the warriors here. And since every warrior on the table doesn't have evil intentions or anything like that, Babidi can't control them. So, whatever backup plans that Babidi could possibly get in his favor are few and very little. Suffice it to say, he's bested rather quickly after Yakan, Pui Pui, and all the other guards are taken care of. And as for the ball containing Majin Buu, the Supreme Kai plans to take it to Beerus to have him take care of it whenever he wakes up. But he doesn't want anyone else finding about Beerus just yet. They are not prepared for him. So, whenever they ask the Supreme Kai what he's going to do with the ball, he just tells them he'll take care of it and they need not worry about it any further, and thanks them for their help. But, before departing, he tells the warriors that in thanks for them helping him defeat Babidi and all of his men, stopping Majin Buu, he will take a select few with great potential to train with the legendary weapon known as the Z-Sword. Who is going to train with this weapon this time? Well, you'll have to wait for the answer, because that's where we're going to be leaving things for the moment. Hello, everybody! It is Nick here with another Nick's Topics Dragon Ball What If Topic video for you guys today. And today, we are getting into part 13 of What If Nam Became a Z-Fighter. Short sagas still haven't stopped this story from being an adventure, for the most part. Anyways, last time we ended off the Buu arc with Majin Buu not even being awoken, so I guess you could just call it the Babidi arc. Anyways, Majin Buu's ball in the end was taken by the Supreme Kai to eventually be dealt with by Beerus, but he doesn't want anyone to know because they're not strong enough to fight Beerus right now, and he doesn't want them to know for that reason. Anyways, he basically said at the end of last episode that he would take a select few warriors to train with the legendary weapon known as the Z-Sword. Now, who are those people going to be training this time? Since I said people, that implies more than one person is going to train with the Z-Sword. Tien is going to be the first one, because of his expertise in fighting and the way he effectively blinded Deborah whenever he killed Kibito and such. Gohan is going to be picked for the same reason that he was before, because the Supreme Kai notices his untapped potential and his power as it is now, and deems that the Z-Sword's going to be good for him. Nam is also going to be one that trains with the Z-Sword, because as an ordinary villager coming this far in training and fighting, the Supreme Kai recognizes this and says that he can come along too. Soon enough, after the three warriors are on the Kai planet and training with the Z-Sword, they all eventually break out the Elder Kai from the sword, and he unlocks all 3 of their potentials. So this takes some time because it's 3 separate people getting the potential drain, and you gotta think about like breaks and if he really wants to go through with it like all in one go, basically. After all's said and done, Gohan decides to go back down to Earth because he's still in a relationship with Videl, and that's going to play out the same way it did before. And he still wants to like be on Earth with his family and his friends and such. So he leaves. But Tien and Nam, they're not so hasty on leaving. They've been rivals and friends for a long time, and getting this potential unlocked from them and learning more about the Kais really brings a whole new world to them, especially Nam. So, the 2 of them decide to stay on the Kai planet and learn from the Supreme Kai the Kai abilities and master their new potential. So they get to stay on the Kai planet. And all goes good until Beerus wakes up from his dream about the Super Saiyan God and wanting to find it out for himself. So, after he wakes up, most of the story, depending on if you want to go along the lines of the Battle of Gods movie or the Dragon Ball Super Battle of Gods, goes the same as it did before. Up until Beerus and Goku have their first interactions, which is still going to be the same because Goku still did go to King Kai's and everything. And it goes the same right up until Goku goes Super Saiyan 3. Now, how does he have Super Saiyan 3? Many people argue that just because he didn't die, that he would never have unlocked Super Saiyan 3. I most definitely think that he still would have. It would have just been far more arduous because he wasn't in Otherworld to get some grasp on it. But anyways, the fight goes pretty much the same, except Super Saiyan 3 Goku is stronger because of his already potent training, which Beerus takes note of, and it does take a tiny bit more effort to keep Goku down. Afterwards, Beerus is surprised to find 2 Earthlings with very high powers training on the Supreme Kai's planet, that of which of course being Tien and Nam. Now over this time skip, Tien and Nam have grown increasingly strong on the Kai planet, near the strength of Super Saiyan 3 Goku. I know, maybe a bit overstretching, but considering the fact that Tien and Nam have been through so much training already, and now they have mastery over all the Kai techniques, plus unlocked potential, they're gonna be pretty freaking strong. And when Beerus goes to check on this and test the power for himself, even though they're just Earthlings, he is quite surprised when Tien and Nam, just alone, can actually combat him. And he's surprised that with just simple training and the Kai training, simple humans are able to match the strength or even exceed the strength of the Saiyan that he had just previously dueled. And he actually has to get a little bit serious. But nonetheless, he beats Tien and Nam, and then goes to Earth to try and find out more about the Super Saiyan God legend. But he's keeping those 2 Earthlings in mind, because he might have plans for them in the near future. Anyways, Gohan and Goten are the only 2 Saiyans that can combat Beerus on Earth, and Goten's far too scared to. Gohan wants to because mainly Beerus makes him. He doesn't press it so much on the kid because he knows Goten's no match for him. But when Shenron is summoned and he tells him about the Super Saiyan God legend and that you need 5 righteous Saiyans and that there's only 3 of them alive, this doesn't go down too well with Beerus. And after finding out that this Super Saiyan God legend was all for naught, he's half tempted to just blow up the Earth right now. Not as much as before because there's no Boo around to anger him, but before he can even think about doing anything rash, Whis poses another idea. There might be a way to still bring out the Super Saiyan God if the Saiyans were to train on his world. Actually, like, bring it out the old-fashioned way instead of relying on the ritual. And Beerus, having not been angered by Boo, as I said, is more inclined to listen to this, because if he were, say, still angered by Boo, I don't know if he would really agree to those terms at the time. So, we are going to get Super Saiyan God Goku, as I've explained in my other two stories, if not maybe one. We are still going to get Super Saiyan God Goku, it's just going to be a little bit later down the line. Now, you guys might be wondering, hey Nick, why didn't you bring someone like Vegeta back? Or, I don't know, maybe Broly, perhaps, into the equation? Tarble, something like that? Well, Vegeta, for one, to make him a good guy, even if he were to be brought back, to make him a good guy in the time span that Beerus would have patience for, would be very arduous. And even if I did throw Broly or Tarble in, that still wouldn't be enough Saiyans, and it would be far too much to write into the story, because the central purpose for the story is to tell Nam, or like how he would influence the story basically, and it would just be far too arduous a task, really. So, you work with what you got. Anyways, Goku and Gohan are brought to Beerus' world, Goku being the first to get the Super Saiyan God form. Like I said, still gets the form, it's just later down the line. Sort of like a Vegeta way of getting it, basically. Anyways, shortly after Goku gets the form, Gohan gets grasps on it, and with the Mystic power-up, this provides Gohan a leg up over his dad. Because, let's be honest, if Gohan really trained and pushed himself and got the Super Saiyan God powers in the original show, he would be the strongest fighter without a doubt. I mean, just look at the anime in general. He was able to match Super Saiyan Blue Goku. Anyways, remember how I said that Beerus was going to look into Tien and Nam more? Well, he follows through on this and says and agrees with Whis that the two of them can join the training, because Beerus was really impressed that mere humans could ascend to even Kai standards. So, Tien and Nam are going to be accompanied on the training. Well, they're not going to get any Super Saiyan God, but they are going to get good training, but I'm not going to give all the ins and outs just yet. Anyways, what about Tagoma and Sorbet and the return of Frieza? If you think we're going to get Golden Frieza here or something, think twice. Because, yeah, I'll explain here in a minute. Anyways, Sorbet and Tagoma, that whole thing plays out as it did before, and Frieza is ultimately resurrected, except it's in his first form now, instead of in pieces, and having to be restored to his first form. Afterwards, he is more than willing to just rush in and show them this time his final form, because he didn't get a chance to, because he was basically sneak attacked. Anyways, he brings his 1,000 soldiers and everyone else to the battle, except there's no Ginyu Tagoma sequence that's going to happen here because Ginyu died on Namek. Anyways, the fight is child's play. The entire thing, the whole saga. Piccolo would be the strongest on Earth at this point in time, with everyone off training. And with the extra help of Jocko and the other few Z fighters, even if Frieza showed his final form in full power, even the Earthlings are far beyond it at this point in time, and the Resurrection F arc would just be a complete waste to talk about. It's pretty much a washout. Anyways, on Beerus' planet, all of the warriors' training is going good. Tien and Nam off getting their own separate training, which I will discuss in the next video, spoiler alert. Goku getting the grasps on Super Saiyan Blue, as well as Gohan. And with their knowledge of Kaioken prior with the Super Saiyan form, it's easier to maintain the Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken much earlier on with both of them, Gohan being far above his dad at this point in time. Not too far, but noticeably far. Anyways, we get to the sequence where Champa and Bedos appear and talk about the Universe 6 versus Universe 7 tournament. Now, who is going to participate this time, and will it be trouble with so few of warriors in the story? Or will it be no trouble at all to pick our team? Hello everybody, it is Nick here with another Nick's Topics Dragon Ball What If topic video for you guys today, and today we are getting in to part 14 of What If Nam Became a Z Fighter. We are already approaching the end of this series. Time flies, doesn't it? Anyways, we recap with the Resurrection F arc going basically as fast as many of the other sagas in this story, as well as my other Dragon Ball stories, because of the influence of Nam being around, and Frieza being basically just in his final form, because he was sneak attacked on Namek in his first form. Basically like my other stories. Not really relevant. Anyways, we ended off with Champa and Vados and the entrance to the Universe 6 vs. 7 tournament. And I said, who would be the people in the tournament now? And without Vegeta, would that pose a problem, even though it hasn't before? Well, today we answer that. Goku is obviously going to be the key player in this. Gohan, because he's stronger than Goku, not only because of his mystic form, but with the influence of God Ki mixing in with that form makes it even better. Tien and Nam, because they're the next two strongest aside from Goku and Gohan. They've had plenty of Supreme Kai training and a little bit of Beerus training recently. And Piccolo, because he's the next in line. He's the 5th strongest. And we have our team. Going into the tournament itself, it's going to be quite clear-cut. Goku's match with Botamo goes pretty much the exact same way, because I don't really see anything major playing a part that would really influence this fight. And the same goes for Goku versus Frost, except for the fact that I don't feel that Goku would really be familiar with Frost transformations because Frieza didn't transform on Namek. So I feel that he would transform nonetheless, so we have that match out of the way. We then have Piccolo versus Frost, which goes the same way as you would expect. But with no Vegeta to butt in, Piccolo gets reinstated and fights Frost again. Now, with this much stronger Piccolo, he takes the second match very seriously. Not only because he didn't get to showcase his full power because he was only relying on the special beam cannon, but the fact that he knows Frost's trickery and knows how to better counterattack him, basically. Now he knows that this was all just a facade and that whatever respect he had for him is long gone, so he takes this fight way more seriously and wins. But, unfortunately, going into the next match, this proves to be an error for him fighting Frost again. Because, with his fatigue from that fight, and the fight before fighting Frost the first time, Vegeta is too much of a problem for him. And he gets knocked out and almost suffocated almost immediately from Vegeta's heat and strength alone. Goku, after getting reinstated because of the whole Frost poison thing, goes next again, pretty much following the same order, except Vegeta isn't there. Goku fights Vegeta, and besides having to use Super Saiyan to a good extent like Vegeta did, he's okay in the match. Nothing really is a problem for him here. He then goes on to fight Cabba. And for those of you thinking because Vegeta ain't around, that means Cabba ain't gonna learn Super Saiyan, I don't think so. Many people argue this, but I feel that Goku fighting him would still, in the end, make Cabba go Super Saiyan, except with Goku, it would be done in a much nicer way. It would be much more like a friendly fight. and not nearly as brutal as Vegeta's entrance with Kaba. So, Goku wins nonetheless, but it is a much nicer fight. We then get on to the Goku versus Hit fight, and this plays out as you would expect, except for the fact that Goku has to get used to Hit's time skip without seeing someone else fight it, Vegeta, previous. But besides that, this match pretty much plays out the exact same way that it did in the original story, except for the fact, like I said, Goku has to get used to his time skip way earlier on, and Goku's stronger here. But nonetheless, I still see Goku exiting the match because of Beerus and Champa and seeing Hit's true strength, except Gohan is the next one fight, because no one's truly been eliminated aside from Piccolo. Gohan is the next one in line to fight Hit, because he wants to basically finish it, because he knows that he can definitely beat Hit from what he's seeing from him and just his power. And with Hit having exerted a lot of strength from Goku, Gohan barely has to put as much power as you would think into this match. God, if not a tiny fraction of blue, because like I said, Mystic adds an edge to that. Afterwards, Goku's meeting with Zeno and pretty much the end of the Universe 6 vs. 7 tournament plays out as you would expect. Already done. I know, another one, like I said, another saga bites the dust right away. Now, for my other Dragon Ball stories, Zamasu hasn't really been relevant. Will he be here? Sad to say, not really. But I will explain why that is, and this time it will actually be like a more detailed explanation, rather than brushing him off to the side with a quick explanation. Now, on one hand, we could see Goku Black again, because of Goku's fight with Hit, even though Gohan was the last one to fight Hit. And that's where another part plays in here with a bit more confusion. This time it's down to confusion of this particular saga rather than nothing to do with it, like the other stories. We could also see Gohan Black because of Gohan being the last one to fight Hit, but that also depends on how much power Hit still had to force Gohan to go higher, because if he just went to God or something, Goku would be the primary goal, because he would see that he was weaker. He wouldn't really have an interest in Gohan. But even if either one of these two happened, Gohan Black, Goku Black, there's something in the future that we gotta discuss. Remember how earlier on in the series, when I introduced the future timeline, future Gohan lived and got Super Kaioken, and Nam explained that, future Nam, and he's still relevant? Well, with Super Saiyan Future Gohan, Super Kaioken, or however you want to say that name, and possibly Super Saiyan 2 going into the Buu saga there, along with Future Nam, who is strong himself, duh, and Future Trunks. Now, Future Trunks here is not a Saiyan, because he's the spawn of Yamcha and Bulma, rather than Vegeta and Bulma. And, depending if Yamcha is still alive in the future as well, if any one of them were to die, say Buu Saga, beginning of the Black Saga, or all of them die, except Future Bulma, kind of like Future Trunks' story, we can also see Super Saiyan 3 Future Gohan in a fit of rage, because I still feel that he would have gotten Super Saiyan 2 in the Buu Saga regardless. Kind of following Trunks' leads, but way more so because he's freaking Gohan. We could have seen Super Saiyan Rage 3. It's not really clear cut on this, how this would go, but I feel that the future timeline would be resolved in its own manner. There's not really much to bring into the main fold. Anyways, with that out of the way, before the Tournament of Power, because we're already getting there, Goku still has his little argy-bargy with Hit, like him basically putting a hit on himself for Hit. It's kind of confusing how to say that, but you guys get what I mean. That particular scene still happens. And we get the entrance to the Tournament of Power. And it is much earlier, because with one Zeno, he is far more bored. He doesn't have another playmate. So, soon enough, the Grand Priest arrives on the Kai planet of Universe 7 and proclaims that the Tournament of Power is soon going to be set in motion. But who will be the team here? And will this actually prove a problem for our heroes? Hello everybody, it is Nick here with another Nick's Topics Dragon Ball What If topic video for you guys today. And today, we are getting into part 15 of What If Nam Became a Z-Fighter. Now, we are approaching the end of this series, going into the Tournament of Power arc. To recap the last episode in short terms, we ended the Universe 6 vs. 7 tournament, with Universe 7, ultimately, like before, being the winners, and the end of the tournament playing out as you would expect, with Goku and Zeno and all that fun stuff. And I discussed Zamasu's arc and why it ultimately would be cut short. You want more context? Just watch my past part for more of that. Anyways, we ended off the episode with the Grand Priest announcing the Tournament of Power, because since the future timeline in the Goku Black original arc isn't relevant here, the one Zeno that remains in the present timeline is much more bored, so the Tournament of Power is put into place much sooner. But who will be part of the team in this scenario? Well, Goku, for one, obviously, and speaking of whom, he has had a lot more practice with the likes of Ultra Instinct Omen after getting the handle on Blue Kaioken. Now, how has he had this certain upgrade already? Well, you see, in my Giran and Hercule stories, because of the extra influence of another character, that means that Goku's growth is exponentially higher, depending on whom the character entails. And Tien and Nam, who are also being in the tournament, because obviously, they have already had practice with Ultra Instinct way earlier than Goku, because Beerus, seeing their potential when he met them on the Kai planet, realized that Ultra Instinct was the real only thing, if they were to train on his planet, that these two could obtain, and thought that they could use this quite effectively from what he saw of their powers. So Goku, seeing this, bribed him to train with it sooner, and thus we have a more experienced Ultra Instinct Omen Goku. Besides the three of them being in the tournament, Krillin is going to take part. Master Roshi, besides this one relevant scene from Resurrection F, gets to take a stand in the tournament like before. Piccolo's obviously going to be in. Gohan, who's had God Ki training as well, and Yamcha. But wait, Nick, that leaves 2 spots. Who's going to be the 2 contenders? Because you've had this happen before, and it was part of your Giran story with Mecha Frieza and Nail. But who's going to take part with so many other changes in this story? Well, I'm going to take a page out of my What If Giran Became a Z-Fighter, and since Nail is still around, that means that we can put him into some more relevance now at this point in the story. And I'm going to say that the whole thing with him and Piccolo fusing with Planet Namek, Sinel and Purina from Universe 6 basically were the first ones to do that. And like my Giran story, we now have a much more powered up Nail and Piccolo fusing with the might of Planet Namek. Like I said, few things taken out of my Giran story, because with all of the plot points being there, there's no point in not giving them some kind of leg up, especially for the Tournament of Power. Now, who's the one other spot gonna go to? Well, it's gonna be Vegeta. Vegeta, Nick? Why? You could have picked any other person, and compared to everyone else, Vegeta's weak. What relevance would he bring? Well, you see, besides my Hercule story, Vegeta has not had much relevance as of my past 2 stories. So, I thought to throw Vegeta a bone here at this point, because if you really think about it, in my other Giran story, if Vegeta were brought back right now, we could see him, if he was training in the likes of hell, a much more stronger Saiyan. He's not going to have, like, God Ki or anything, obviously, but especially for the Tournament of Power, since they brought back the likes of Frieza, it fits the stones perfectly that if Vegeta were to have died way earlier on, that he would be the next in line that I think Goku would think about. And just to show off the Prince of the Saiyans, one of the most popular Dragon Ball characters. Anyways, Fortune Teller Baba, as well as the Dragon Team, are not as mad at Goku or surprised at him requesting Vegeta, because he's no Frieza, and everybody could take him on easily, whereas Frieza was a whole nother story in the original lore. Anyways, we see that the likes of Goku going into the actual hell, and not just Frieza's version of hell, to meet up with Vegeta, who at this point is training, because Saiyan. And after meeting him and explaining everything that's gone on, Vegeta then demonstrates that he has achieved Super Saiyan and can even go a level beyond, which we know to be Super Saiyan 2, because he has been stuck in hell for a long time ever since he was killed off in the Saiyan arc. So for him to have Super Saiyan 2 even would not be that much of a far statement. And he says that he is willing to join the team on the condition, sort of like Frieza, that he gets brought back to life after. And Goku is not nearly as pressed about this decision as he was with Frieza, because Vegeta didn't ultimately kill anybody, except Yamcha. But that was more or less the Cybermen, not really him. Anyways, we get to the scene where Fortune Teller Baba brings Vegeta to Earth, and everything is put into arrangement for Goku and Vegeta to go back to the team and for them to go to the World of Void. But we get to another little problem. The Universe 9 Assassins. I do not know if I was bringing them up to much relevance in the Garen story as much as I should have, but if I did, then it would ultimately be cut short in that regard because of Mecha Golden Frieza. You guys can clarify that for me in the comments if I did or not. Anyways, aside from me rambling on about that little story, Vegeta, compared to the Universe 9 Assassins, with the powers of Super Saiyan 2 at his disposal and a lot of training with it, even though he's far weaker than True Golden Frieza, he could still beat up the Assassins something fierce. But when we get to the Universe 9 Assassin leader, he's actually able to hold his own much more effectively, because, see, the thing with Frieza, he just blasted all of them with death beams just over and over again. He didn't, like, go all out against them or come up close. And this plays more to the Universe 9 Assassins leader's advantage. Not only is he able to fend off Vegeta much more effectively than Frieza that he ever would, but he also gets to see some openings in which he can strike with the Hakai energy. Now, how does this Vegeta fare against this energy? He is absolutely not any kind of match. The minute the Hakai ball pierces Vegeta, he is shouting, writhing in pain. He can't even think to get out of it. It's just so much pain. He might have seen what Kakarot and everybody else was up to for the most part, but most of the time he didn't even care, even when it gets to the likes of God training, because he was too focused training by himself. But this also plays to Goku's advantage of this being a surprise whenever he goes into his Super Saiyan God form, takes out the leader, and ultimately frees Vegeta because he still needs Vegeta's help. Now, after this, he gives Vegeta a Senzu Bean, and it takes a good moment for the prince to register what the crap just happened, because he's never experienced any kind of energy, and this energy of that Universe 9 Assassins leaders is all too familiar to a certain somebody. A certain someone that shows up right then. Beerus and Whis, at the time where Goku was caught in the ball by Frieza. And this is the moment where Beerus and Vegeta meet for the first time, ever since Vegeta was a kid. After regaining his composure after the whole Akai Ball incident and Beerus being a thing, Vegeta now remembers that Kakarot just used this god power and that he must have been training with Beerus all this time. And he is angry. Not only was he sneak attacked by pests using the powers of a destroyer god against him, but now Kakarot comes along with the Super Saiyan God power, and he wants it for himself. He demands to get the God power within him, or he will refuse to join the team. He is being very persistent. But he didn't really think about how this, in turn, would affect Beerus. And Beerus is in no kind of mood for this blasphemous act from Vegeta. They don't have time for the God training. And ultimately, Vegeta has to just go with it. He can't do anything. Now, the team is set for the Tournament of Power. And we get to the team arriving at the World of Void and the entrance itself into the tournament. But how will it play out with so many changes in character development? Well, you'll have to wait for next time, because that's where we're leaving things for the moment. Hello everybody, it is Nick here with another Nick's Topics Dragon Ball What If topic video for you guys today, and today we are getting into part 16, aka the finale of What If Nam Became a Z-Fighter. I figured that with the rest of the story that I had planned for this certain topic, that I would fit it into the finale for this particular tale. Plus, I make the finales for every one of my series that I do on this channel long, so I figured this wouldn't be a problem. Anyways, to recap the last episode, we got into the entrance of the Tournament of Power and the team for it, consisting of Goku, Piccolo, Gohan, Tien, Roshi, Krillin, Yamcha, Nam, Nail, and Vegeta, who had been brought back to life for this particular event, and Nail, who, like my Giran story, was present during this time and fused with the whole planet Namek, like my Giran story, with the likes of Piccolo. Anyways, with everything set up, we go into the World of Void, and the actual beginning to the Tournament of Power. Now, the setup for this and the build-up goes as you would expect. But once the team gets there, things begin to change. Because not only does Vegeta get a real feel for the outside world since he's been in hell, and get to meet Kappa for the first time, but he also sees Frost. And since he never got his chance to actually fight or even kill Frieza for that matter. He's yet to kill Frieza in the main timeline, but still, he decides that Frost is going to be his main target, to give him some kind of clarity. So, when the tournament itself begins, he transforms into Super Saiyan 2 right from the get-go and rushes at Frost. Now, this takes Frost immensely by surprise, because he didn't expect anyone to combat him first thing, in particular Universe 7, much less a Saiyan that he doesn't even know about, that he had no knowledge of whenever they were fighting in the Tournament of Destroyers. But Vegeta is relentless, using full power and just immediately just going for the kill. Even if it gets him disqualified, he doesn't care. He wants some kind of clarification as to killing some member of Frieza's clan. Meanwhile, while this is going on, Narirama makes himself known with his spinning arms attack, as we saw in the introduction to the Tournament of Power. But since Goku is fighting Hit from the get-go, because like my other stories, Goku would be fighting Hit if the Zeno exhibition were to have not happened. Goku would be fighting Hit regardless, because didn't really have a prior experience to Toppo or hearing about Jiren, or Top if you want to be more specific. This means that Basil would be the only one to stop Narirama's rampage, which in turn would cause a feud to happen between Napapa, Basil,
Lilabu and Narirama. And Lilabu actually gets to stand along with Napapa, likely Basil just retreating to regroup with the trio of danger, meaning Lavender and Bergamo, and Narirama having to fight the two tag team members of Universe 10, that being Napapa and Lilabu, likely winning in the end, just with a lot more strength lost, because he has to fight two members, even though whenever he fought Hit, he was completely outmatched. Speaking of Hit, he is unable to use his new abilities to his absolute leisure, meaning the time cage and like whatever other moves he would have thought up with before the Tournament of Power started, because since Goku has had a lot more power and experience than his canon itself, what with more mastery over Blue Kaioken and Ultra Instinct Omen because of Tien and Nam's influence at Beerus' planet, this means that even if Hit was able to pull off the first stages of his time cage or whatever new moves he could come up with, it wouldn't work to the fullest extent that he would plan, because Goku could just outmaneuver these moves and ultimately win overall. So, like my other stories, Hit is pretty much eliminated right there and then, and this is a major loss to the Universe 6 team, besides the likes of Cyano and Purina and the Saiyans, but, Cyano and Purina moreover, because they're the strongest of the team, besides Hit. Unless you want to count Kefla, but Potara and Fusion isn't really introduced in this saga, so we can't really count that. Anyways, Frost at this point, after getting a handle on Vegeta's strength, after more or less getting punched and kicked by him a bunch of times before realizing the fruits of his strength, actually realizes that his attacks don't really hurt. He just caught him off guard, and soon enough, Frost begins to gain the upper hand, and tells Vegeta outright that it was a big mistake coming for him first. If he had just stayed back and waited, then maybe he would have actually not been beaten. But now, Frost is going to make sure that he tortures Vegeta for what he just did. And Vegeta, seeing this guy for a complete representation of Frieza, is not backing down. Even when Frost begins to gain the upper hand, Vegeta is not deterred in the slightest. He is dependent on beating Frost, even if he gets himself disqualified. He tries out some moves that he has yet to use, one being the Big Bang attack, which would be his first time we see him using it, but not in Hell, because he's had prior experience to practicing with this move. Afterwards, following up with a Gallic Gun, and whatever other moves, you name it. Dirty Fireworks, Genocide, Breaker, even trying to use a Final Flash, but that is not even going to happen, because at this point, recognizing Vegeta's strength, even at Super Saiyan 2, it's kind of close to Frost, but not really. Frost at his full power still is way above Vegeta. And even with all these moves at his disposal, Frost has just had enough at this point. Vegeta had his fun, but at this point, he's just getting downright annoyed. And soon enough, Vegeta drops out of his Super Saiyan 2 power. And he becomes too injured to the point where his attacks are just doing nothing. They were almost doing nothing before, but at least at Super Saiyan 2, he stood a better chance. But that's mainly because he pretty much went after Frost right away. Frost wasn't expecting it, caught him off guard. But once Frost recognizes that Vegeta is in no condition to fight him any longer, as regrettable as it is not to kill him, Frost just death beams him right out of the ring, or Chaos shoots him, as his Chaos shot is his version of the death beam, but you guys get what I mean. Once Vegeta is at the stands, Beerus is quite disappointed. Not only did Vegeta ignore the whole working together as a team aspect, but he went out to fight Frost just out of sheer determination. to get his own back on Frieza, and that they are no way alike. Their personalities might be, but they're not the same guy. And Beerus gives him a big scolding. After the defeat of Hit, Goku recognizes Jiren for the first time. And even after he tries to go for him, he's stopped by Genos, who he fought in the original Tournament of Power for like a few minutes in the opening episode. But as he's fighting Genos, Nink comes from behind and grabs him. Because this would be just a little after the time Nink would grab him originally, but only by like another few minutes or so because he had to fight Hit. I say had, he more or less wanted to. But this hold is not enough. Goku turns Super Saiyan 3. Why not blue, you might ask? Well, like I said, Goku's had far more training than his canon self because of Nam's inclusion and Tien and him being rivals and training together all the time. He manages to throw off Nink, but Genos transforms into his true form, and even though this is a surprise to Goku at first, even his Super Saiyan 3 is far more than the Beast Bird can handle. I say Beast Bird because, kind of, his mouth is like a bird, chicken-like, it doesn't matter. Anyways, we then get to the whole scene where Universe 9 would originally attack Goku for what they did to him at the exhibition. But this would be the first time that Goku would have met Universe 9 or the Trio of Danger or any of them. So, who is going to fight with Goku against Universe 9? Since he has no prior knowledge to meeting them or anything like that, and we don't have Vegeta anymore since he was knocked out. And there's no Frieza, so who's going to fight alongside of him? Well, easy. I think that Tien and Nam, even though it's kind of a meme at this point for me picking them to go along with Goku, but it's logical since they've been with him the longest. They are going to fight alongside and help Goku beat the likes of Universe 9. And with all of them having almost complete mastery over the Ultra Instinct Omen form, this helps against especially Lavender's poison and ultimately the group's succession in defeating Universe 9. And ultimately, Universe 9's are the first ones to be erased. Now, what about Botamo and Magetta, or rather, Bota Magetta? Who is going to fight them in place of Vegeta? Well, since Tien and Nam are the next ones closest to Goku when this happened, Tien uses a solar flare because, since they know about Magetta's weakness at this point, they figure to remove Botamo the best way they know how. Tien uses a solar flare, in which case Nam, using his martial arts expertise, uses every fighting move at his disposal to knock Botamo off. Even though it doesn't do any damage, the solar flare is enough so that way Nam can actually pull this off. Afterwards, and Botamo is off of Magetta, Tien uses this point to insult Magetta, much against his will, because Nam didn't really have it in him to insult someone. Afterwards, Magetta is thrown out, and Botamo, have nothing else to do, is thrown out himself. Diem tries his hand at eliminating the group, like he did before, but this doesn't really play into his favor, as we know from the original story, and he gets thrown out pretty much the same way, except there is no Tien there to assist. Now, for the likes of Shosa and Majora, I see, even though there's no 18 here, I still see them getting eliminated, except Krillin is going to be there, but maybe by Yamcha replacing Android 18 in this particular endeavor. Now, when we get to Frost, where he would originally sneak attack Krillin, since he's had prior experience to fighting Vegeta basically at the right beginning, and even though Vegeta's attacks didn't really hurt Frost per se, they did hurt a little bit, but not enough to warrant, good damage, and he did expend a decent bit of energy. But even if he did have full energy and that he wasn't tired or beat at all, I still feel that with Krillin and Yamcha's strength and development in the entire story, that they would be able to defend themselves and actually catch on to Frost's tricks, or at least hold them off to the point where Frost would retreat. But I mainly see with their martial arts expertise and better strength in this story that Frost wouldn't be a problem and would just get thrown out. We then get to, already, the Goku versus Caulifla and Kale first fight. Now, Tien and Nam did think about helping Goku, but since they're Saiyans, Goku wanted to take this endeavor on alone, much like he did before, except he wasn't telling anybody in the original story to stay out of it. He more or less just met them and fought them on his own. We then get to the point where Kale becomes Berserk and Goku goes into his blue state. And pretty much everything after that point, with the whole Berserk Kale thing, Jiren knocking her out, all of that goes as you would expect. We then cut ahead to the 5 Pride Troopers scene. Now, this isn't really worth talking about, because even though there's no 17 or 18, I still feel, like with Universe 9, that Goku, likely accompanied by Tien or Nam, or even, 2 other people, it could have been random, because Caulifla and Kale are still in, so that segment wouldn't change any. So either Goku would be on his own, or Tien and Nam, or maybe Piccolo and Nail, or someone else, some other tag team, would take the stead of 17 and 18. But I don't see much talking about here, because ultimately it wouldn't really change the story. After that's all said and done, we cut to Universe 2 and their transformation, which goes the way that you would expect, except this time 17 isn't around to interrupt the transformation. We then cut to a scene which I talked about in other stories. Jiren. At one point after Ribrianne's transformation, she unleashed her lovely showtime across the entire ring, but whenever Jiren deflected one of these blasts, he was about to blast Ribrianne out. But Vegeta was the first one to do this, and Jiren noticed. But Vegeta, being already knocked out prior by Frost, since he's out, no one's there to stop Jiren from doing this. So, with the power Jiren exhibits, and Ribrianne not knowing about this and having been blasted by Vegeta in the original, is knocked out by Jiren pretty much right on the spot, surprising the entire Universe 2 team. Now, with Vegeta already being in the tournament at this point in time, you would have expected him to have a fight with Ribrianne in this particular story. But even had he not attacked Frost, his power is far weaker than the original Super Saiyan Vegeta that fought Ribrianne originally, so he probably would have just been eliminated by her, which there wouldn't be much to talk about after. So, there you go. Now, as for Rosie, I see her and Goku fighting the same way they did before, except Goku triumphantly beating her. Now, as for the other members of Universe 2 that fought at this time, those of which being Vikkel and Kakunza, even though there's no 17 to fight, I still feel that one of the other members of Universe 7 would take them out without any difficulty. That of which being either Goku or, like I said, someone else in Universe 7, replacing that stead. The Tournament of Powers honestly going pretty fast, just I want to try and talk about as much as I can with any of the scenes. Now, as for Universe 10, the likes of Albany and Rubalt, Gohan and Piccolo, besides the fact that Piccolo and Gohan are stronger here, Gohan of which having godly potential, this segment pretty much goes the same way as you would expect, except it's easier on the behalf of Gohan and Piccolo. So, Universe 10 is ultimately erased, like they were originally. Now, as for Koei and Dakuri, or Dakori, however you want to pronounce that, Master Roshi is still in here, so he eliminates them the same way that you would expect. But there's no Ganos to fight Master Roshi, so that means Master Roshi has far more health and potential than he did in the original story. He's not nearly as injured as he was, and he doesn't have to get revived by Goku. Let's admit that was a pretty sad scene. Anyways, we then get to the Universe 2 Prom and Hermilla scene, but Piccolo and Gohan are able to defend against this much more effectively, what with the power that they had in the original story. But just before they're about to act, two others intervene. Krillin, using the multi-form to his particular level, is able to distract Hermilla the same way Tien did, so not much to talk about. It's just done differently, what with Krillin being the primary person. And Yamcha, taking advantage of Krillin doing this, sees where Hermilla's shooting from, and using his wolf-like powers and the Spirit Ball to his advantage, he's actually able to catch on to where the blasting is coming from. And right then, after the last multi-form of Krillin is hit, Yamcha takes this moment and delivers a powerful wolf fist to Hermilla, Krillin using this opportunity to Kamehameha Hermilla out of the ring. Prum, not seeing any other way to defend himself, really, is left pretty much doing nothing. And when Dr. Rhoda makes his presence known, because that whole segment happens, Krillin and Yamcha use this opportunity to just knock the two out, similar to what Vegeta did in the original story. Not much to talk about there. Majikaio then makes his presence known to the Pride Troopers, but this time, there's a catch. See, with Hit being knocked out way earlier on, Dispo never fought Hit along with Kunchi intervening. So, that means that Kunchi is still in the tournament. So, whenever Majikaio makes his presence known, Kunchi is there and is the first one to attack Majikaio. Dispo then intervenes, and with the tag team of Dispo and Kunchi, this means that Jiren does not have to step in. He thinks about it, but with an extra person, there's not really a need because Dispo's not on the back foot. So, Toppo doesn't have to want to step in, meaning Jiren doesn't even mention that he wants to. We then get to the whole Gohan versus Jamise fight with everything else playing the way as you would expect. Except, when we get to the Gohan versus Jamise fight, there is no Frieza, no Frost, so this is a one-on-one fight. And with Gohan having godly potential along with the mystic form, that means that he is far more powerful, and even though instant transmission is a surprise to him because Goku never went to Yardrat in this story, that means that even though that's a surprise, Gohan is still far more stronger than Jamise, and wins almost completely in the first few minutes. We then get to a big thing. The Goku versus Jiren fight, which will change the entire rest of this story, which is another 8 minutes. Anyways, the startup to this fight plays out as you would expect. But by the time Goku gets into his God and Blue forms, Jiren has to try harder, especially when he goes Blue Kaioken. But after Jiren exhibits more power and it becomes fiercer and harder to hit, Goku uses, for the first time seemingly, Ultra Instinct Omen at its finest. And Jiren actually has to try harder now, because Goku did this almost immediately. No Spirit Bomb, none of that whole sequence. And Jiren has to exhibit the same power that he used to blast Goku away at the end of their first fight with Ultra Instinct Omen almost immediately, because he recognizes that if he doesn't power up to some kind of standard level soon, he's probably gonna lose. And this is just right after he beats Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken Goku. And after seeing that Jiren's power just keeps on growing, Goku uses this opportunity to power up more of his Ultra Instinct Omen state. Because like I said, with Tien and Nam being on Beerus's planet, that means Goku has had much more experience with the Omen form. He's not going to get mastered to a good degree anytime soon,
but it does mean that just a few minutes into their first fight, Jiren already has to exhibit the power that he used whenever he fought Goku and Vegeta in the halfway point of the Tournament of Power. And this is just a few minutes into their fight. But even though Goku's currently on the back foot and using all of his power in the Omen state, this is playing to Universe 7's advantage. How? Well, whenever the fight starts to get fiercer, the land around them starts to fall apart, and Goku goes for that one punch that he used in the end of their first fight, this plays right into Universe 7's advantage, because Jiren is open. Right before Jiren's about to blast Goku away like he did in the original story, Tien uses his opportunity, powers up to his full power, uses a solar flare. Nam, reciprocating this, powering up to Ultra Instinct Omen himself, and using all the power he can muster. Everything rides on this tag team attack. And him using a full power cross-arm dive, the most powerful version that he has ever used before. And this, surprisingly, works on Jiren. How? Well, unlike before where Hit tried to get Jiren off guard after he blasted Goku away, now he is just about to blast Goku away, so there's enough time for Tien and Nam to act. Which means that by the time the solar flare and the cross-arm dive hit, Jiren is completely and utterly taken aback by this, and the cross-arm dive hurts. I'm talking bad. And this is the perfect time for Goku to act. He powers everything he's got, every little bit of strength, and powers up to his absolute max of Ultra Instinct Omen and fires the most powerful Kamehameha he's ever mustered. And Jiren's knocked out. Very injured, but not dead. Because, as we've seen, Jiren is pretty freaking durable. Anyways, let's get on to the other strongest members of the Tournament of Power now that Jiren is effectively knocked out. Cyan and Purina would likely get knocked out by the likes of Piccolo and Nail, seeing as they both have used the same strategy. It'd be befitting enough to put them both against each other. As for Dispo, I see him getting eliminated by either the Namekians or Tien and Nam, because we gotta think about, like, fast people to, like, pair against Dispo to make it, like, somewhat reasonable. As for Top, I see him getting eliminated by either Goku or Gohan. And with that, all the strongest people of other universes have been effectively eliminated. Not too much relevance to talk about at this point. Super Shenron is summoned, and the wish to restore all the universes goes as you would expect, with Goku most likely getting that wish, because there's no 17 here, and the tournament went a lot differently. And then, after everything with the Tournament of Power is said and done, Whis does Vegeta a solid and brings him back to life, shocking everybody. Now, even though he was the first to be eliminated, he still did well in a way against Frost. He still participated, and Universe 7 still won. So, Beerus was very much so against this, more so than Frieza, because hey, Frieza lasted to the frickin' end. But Vegeta still did his part, and afterwards, he wants the Super Saiyan God powers, and wants to get the power that Kakarot has. Goku, even though he said that he was going to do this, well, he didn't really say it outright to Vegeta, but he's okay with this idea. But he says that if Vegeta tries anything with this power, he'll regret it. After this, the rest of the story isn't much to talk about. The Dragon Ball Super Broly movie wouldn't even happen, because even though Vegeta would probably go out in space or something and maybe find Broly and Paragus that way, there's no Frieza, so I don't really see any way that Broly and Paragus would be relevant to the story. And as for Dragon Ball Super Hero, the movie would probably still happen the same way, except with Gohan and Piccolo being way stronger. As for Vegeta, he does eventually get Super Saiyan God, and doesn't try anything with it. He is still very much on his own because Yamcha and Bulma are together, like I've stated before, but other than that, the story, not much else I can put in or talk about. So, we come to the end of the tale, and this is all what might have happened if a certain villager warrior from the 21st World Martial Arts Tournament would have become a Z-Fighter and more handy to the group. And that's where we end our story of what if Nam became a Z-Fighter. Now, I hope that you guys truly enjoyed this story and are looking forward as to what's to come. I truly enjoy making these kinds of stories about, like, small characters becoming relevant. I mean, just look at The Walking Dead. Seeing, like, small characters like Amy, or Lori, as much as I didn't really want to do that, or Dale, or people like that. And in Dragon Ball, there's so much more. So many more characters with untapped potential, or unshowed potential. Like Nam, for instance. And there was a lot to work with when it came to Nam. Even though his main operative was cross-arm dive, there was still a lot to imply with him. And I really hope that you guys enjoyed this story. I will let you guys know in an update video what the next topic is to bring. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you then.